2016 Madison County Board of Education work session is called in order. If there's anyone who didn't know they needed to sign up in order to speak as either a committee member or the open meeting, please do that now, and we'll collect those sheets in about 2 minutes. But we'll go ahead and get started. Mr. Kubik, are you collecting the sheets or signing up?
I'll hold them.
Okay.
I'm collecting.
Okay, thank you. Well, while you're standing, would you mind also leading us in a word of prayer?
You want me to? All right. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the school system and the children that we serve. Please protect everyone as they go home this evening, and please help the board and the superintendent make decisions that are in the best interest of our students and their families. In the Lord's name, amen.
Thank you. Mr. Mason.
That was the first.
Huh?
That was the first one.
Was it really?
Yeah. First time to say a prayer? No. In this board meeting.
Perfect.
Mr. Bennett, I say one every day.
He's never had to ask for forgiveness in his life.
You're all right.
All right. Just before we get started, some updates from around the system. Last 2 nights ago, Tuesday night, we honored all of our Teachers of the Year and Support Professionals of the Year from each of our schools. It was an incredible night at Meridianville that we had at Flint River Baptist Church, and want to thank Jeff Anderson, and these are our evaluators that read all these applications. Jeff Anderson and Mary Louise Stowe and Alita Stender were our outside folks that helped judge that, and that took a lot of time, and I appreciate you guys with that. Our secondary teacher of the year was Carrie Bates from Buckhorn. Our secondary support of the year was Rita Cochran from Monrovia Middle School. Our elementary teacher of the year was Valerie Owen from Riverton, and our elementary support of the year was Lisa Campbell from Walnut Grove. Our alternate winners were Cindy Stanley from Sparkman High School, who is an incredible lady, Janice Smith from Central, and our alternate supports of the year were Mary Busby from Sparkman 9 and Karen Pentecost from Madison Crossroads. So it was an incredible night that we had there celebrating those folks, and I wanted to thank you guys for being part and helping us get there. Also, we have we're coming up with a draft of the calendar for the 17-18 year. We're sending that out to policy review. We sent you guys a copy. Other school districts are finalizing their calendars, and so we're kind of starting that process of going ahead and letting policy review take a look at that. And we'll get started with the discussion of our vaccination and Alabama kids in schools. This is the VAX program, and Ms. Janice Ward.
This would be the second year that we provided student school-based vaccine clinics. Through this organization is actually an LLC formed by Dr. Tim Stewart and his fellow practitioners with Huntsville Pediatric Associates. They provided 497 vaccines last year. They did an excellent job. It went very smoothly, very few complaints. So, and they're very professional about it. They bring in an all-professional staff when they work with us. So it's well received. And I don't have data tonight to share with you on attendance, but historically, since we've been offering flu vaccine clinics in our schools, our attendance for the months that we would anticipate having flu outbreaks, the attendance has improved each year. So that would be the goal. So, any questions? I know that the date, Ms. Thompson, on the contract right now says on this blank day of January 2016. Obviously, that would have to be adjusted if the board would choose to go forward with the agreement.
And this will be up for approval at our board meeting, Thursday meeting after spring break.
Right.
Do they actually physically come to the school?
Yes, sir, they do. They bring a team of a couple nurses, an administrative person, oftentimes the office manager comes to handle the paperwork, and then it's registered nurses administer the vaccines.
And did I read that correctly, that students and their families could be vaccinated? Is that correct?
We haven't had any parents take advantage of that. Some parents have come to, they've chosen to be with their child at the time that the child receives their vaccine, but they haven't administered, maybe a few to some adults.
They would.
They would, yes, ma'am. we have a great program for our employees, so I feel like making sure our students are covered, our employees and retirees can get their vaccines. We're trying to protect and provide an opportunity for improved attendance and instruction delivered by that regular classroom teacher as much as possible for good outcomes academically, we hope. And there's no charge to the families. Now, VAX does charge against the family's insurance if that's what's included on the vaccine form, but they will also vaccinate children who do not have any insurance.
All right. Any other questions? All right, thanks, Ms. Ward.
Thank you.
Next up will be Dr. Minsky discussing the early childhood specialist position that we are looking at adding.
I'd like you to consider adding the early childhood specialist position. This would be working with our pre-kindergarten through second grade teachers and students. This person would be directly under our current supervisor for instruction, Mr. Alan Perkins. I sent you, or in your schooling agenda, you have basically 3 documents. The first document is kind of a chart which shows you the growth that we've had with our pre-K. 2001, we had 9 students in our pre-K, 1 classroom, and no aides. This particular school year, we have 348 students in pre-K. That's Title I and our Office of School Readiness. 20 classrooms, 20 teachers, and 18 aides. One of the things we have done the last 2 years with improving our pre-K program is going from a half-day program, which is the way it was with our Title I program, to a full-day program. And we're seeing a lot of benefits from that for our students. Mr. O'Rear shared with me, and he's here for any questions. With 63% of the kindergarten students attending a pre-K programs, it appears to kind of create a slight disadvantage for those students not attending. In the fall of 2015 Dibbles assessment, they assessed 123 kindergarten students. Of those 123 students, 65 had attended the pre-K program at Madison Crossroads. 76 students benchmarked at the beginning of the year. 85% of those attended their pre-K program. So we're seeing some great gains. And not just with kindergarten, he also shared that the in 2013-2014, they assessed 53 students who attended the pre-K program in first grade Dibbles. Of those students tested, 90% of them benchmarked. So we're seeing great gains in this. What's happening is, as we're growing, which is a great thing, Dr. Jensen in our Title I program and Janet Slaughter have been kind of heading up both OSR and the Title I pre-Ks. One of the reasons we want to add this particular position is to have a consistent overview of, or oversight of all of our pre-Ks, our Title I, our Office of School Readiness classes, and our special ed pre-Ks, so that all of our teachers are getting the same training and able to work with those students based on of what they learned through the OSR program. In addition to that, things that we're finding is we're getting a lot more non-Title I schools participating in that, and with the non-Title I, based on the Title I budget and guidelines, that's not allowing Dr. Jensen and Janet Slaughter to help those particular schools due to time constraints. The other piece of the documentation I sent you is a third part, and that was actually some of the work that has to go in. The blessing with the Office of School Readiness Pre-K is providing the funds and getting our students into pre-K programs. The hard part about it is this is probably more oversight from this particular department than any other programs that we run. They will send multiple emails. There's multiple checks that have to be done with every school. Right now, they're overseeing a budget of $1.4 million, and that's with the grants that we have, and we're expecting 10 to 15 more grants next year. So we're looking at well over $2 million budget that needs to be observed, checked on, and make sure that we're following their particular guidelines. One of the things that have come up, we had a situation at one of our elementary schools where one of the guidelines was not followed directly. Office of School Readiness sent an email out to the principal and to Dr. Slaughter And Dr. Slaughter was actually able to intervene, and without that intervention and oversight, there's a possibility we'd have lost funding for that particular unit because their particular guidelines aren't followed. So again, to us, there's a big need to make sure that we have the support and the supervision for this particular program. In addition, and I envision this program or this person, probably 80% of their time is to be working with the pre-K. The additional time left over will be working with our kindergarten teachers. One of the things we're getting ready to work on is upgrading our kindergarten report card. That person would be that person, help oversee that particular process, as well as working with our first and second grade teachers on staff development and making sure that we have transition from pre-K up through elementary schools. The job description is actually the second page of that. And again, we're just looking qualifications, looking for certification, early childhood education, and also as the other specialist positions, we're looking for administrative degree as well.
But that's not required, it's just a preferred.
Correct.
As I read over this, I don't see how someone just coming out of the classroom could do everything that you're asking them to do without some kind of
It's administrative experience? Okay.
I mean,
We can definitely make that adjustment.
Well, I mean, that's just me personally. That's, it just seems like it's going to require a lot.
Other questions?
How would we fund it?
How we fund it? Well, we actually did our pre-staffing today, and Karen, can you?
Yes, and looking at next year's staffing, with the enrollment in schools and the number of teachers, we should be down 10 locally funded teachers, so it would more than cover this particular position, and it would also help us with the raises that possibly will come through at the state level for our locally funded support staff as well as certified staff.
The state,
If we're down 10 locally funded units, we're still getting the money for those people?
No, I'm just saying it won't increase the impact on our local funds.
But it'll be locally funded.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that, I think
We're
we're
freeing up
all,
local funds in other areas in staffing, not for this, but we would anyway when you look at enrollment and what the earnings is.
I don't think we just, I don't know, but I know that a lot of schools are losing units. It concerns me that we keep adding at the top. We've never done that. So I'm sure it's needed. I'm not
yeah,
saying
and the concern with not adding it is where there's a chance of us adding 10, 14, 15 units next year, but if we can't get additional help, I'm afraid, I don't want to get to a point where we can't accept the money and have to turn away our students. Basically, the state has put in, I believe, $14 to $20 million that they're looking to add to the first class pre-K, which is the Office of School Readiness, for next year in the budget. And their goal is to have, I think it's by 2023, to have every child in pre-K.
Last year, we had most of our non-pre-K elementary schools did not apply for OSR grants. And then when the grants were released, and we had a big story where we had more pre-K OSR grants than any other system in the state, there were a lot of upset parents where, why didn't my school get an OSR pre-K grant? Well, your school didn't apply. And the reason why they didn't apply is it's very tedious. It's a lot of hard work, and you have people in your schools almost weekly answering emails and up to date, and there needs to be district level support to help with that. And so I've asked all of our elementary schools to apply with kind of the promise we will help support you in this. And that's why we're looking to almost double the number of OSR grants that we're going to have. This is bringing in, Karen, how many millions of dollars to our school system total with our OSR grants? I mean, you gave me a number a couple days ago about how much this means to our system.
Well, currently, we receive $1,400,000, and we could double that.
And it's just hard to ask for principals and schools to take this on without being able to provide them the support of doing so. And the gains that we've seen from the kids that have gone through pre-K has been substantial, where those kids are benchmarking and they're now on grade level at an incredibly high rate. So
I'm a big fan of pre-K. Don't get me wrong. I just,
And Ms. Joe, let me make it clear, our staffing numbers are just the same with or without this position.
and we have gaps. Would you agree with this, that we have gaps? If we add this, we still have elementary grades that aren't covered by anybody really before you get to the middle school
Nancy Curry.
specialists.
Nancy Curry is the one who covers the elementary. The upper element would be the upper
And
element.
I would love to see, I know that y'all gave something like this out at the summer conference, but we never did get a copy of it. I would just love to see where all that falls in. That would be
Sure.
very helpful.
We can do that. And again, there are some principals here that have the OSR program, so if you have any questions for them.
Oh, well, there's some in my schools.
Right.
Great, I love it. You know, I just, you know, I don't want us to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I understand.
it just happened last year. We said basically apply if you'd like to, and we had very little
We just
participation.
can't continue to apply to support it, because Title I can't legally continue to monitor, well, not monitor, but to work with it, do all the administration. So they can't legally do it.
Well, I know that when there's one that comes from the Office of School Readiness that's not a Title I school, that they certainly could not touch that.
Right.
And some of our schools didn't apply because they didn't have room. I mean, is that not true, Karen? There are a lot of specifications about what you have to provide as
There
far
are,
as.
Yes, ma'am.
the rooms have to be 630 square feet.
Right.
This school year, every elementary school has applied for at least one for the 2016.
I know at Central, some of their rooms are, you know, they have to put two rooms together to have that much space on that back hall, so.
Ms. Bates?
Do any of those grants allow for you to log any administrative hours to be charged to the grant, or is that not part of that grant process?
They do, but if we charge back to the grant, then we would not have enough of the grant allocation to provide for the salaries.
Even if you divided the administrator by several
Right.
grades?
The grant award, the largest grant award is $150,000, and that grant award would allow for the covering of the salary. However, we would probably only receive 5 of those. And the other grant awards are in the 80s.
And my other question, just because for me visually things make more sense, how many students did you say were in our pre-K?
Currently,
348.
348?
And that does not include the special education.
right.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, is that more students than we have in our smallest elementary school? Or close to it?
Correct.
Okay. Just make,
Yes.
you'd be able to see how many kids we're actually talking about. So we're basically talking about.
And again, we
a
had,
school size of Walnut.
the numbers were not near that high, but in the past, we'd provided pre-K through the Title I program, but it was a half-day program. So students only they either come for the morning or the afternoon.
Correct.
Now they're getting an entire day full of education, you know.
Highly qualified teachers.
Highly qualified teachers,
Which
they
as
have.
a parent, we thank you, because trying to find somebody to pick your kid up in the middle of the day when they're in pre-K is very difficult for a working parent.
Some of our larger.
Follow-up, just so then and again, with exactly how we're paying for this. You said,
In staffing, we have, say for this year, we set aside a certain number for our locally funded units in our district schools.
Correct.
We won't need all of that next year when we look at locally funded units, so we were going to pull from that.
let's pull that thread a little bit. Why are we losing that many students where we're going to lose 10 local units? Or what local units will we not?
We'll get funded for them where we weren't funded for them completely. This year, we had to add, we had several big pre-Ks, and we had to put local funded units in several spots where we didn't get the state foundation units for it.
Well, I understand we're a year in arrears, but
I mean, we could go school by school and change the staffing, it's not.
no, I just had some, now, okay, so we lose these 10 locally funded units because they become state funded. But
No,
every-
sir, we just don't have them. Well, some are state funded, and some we are in the staffing numbers. Say, for example, special ed may not need one in a particular school, because of changes in numbers.
So,
And staffing changes every year based on the enrollment.
given that our legislature and governor are determined to issue a pay raise,
Right.
how many locally funded units are we left with that we have to then account for the pay raise And how does adding this
We have
position
locally
affect
funded
that?
support unit, and we have locally funded certified, I don't know the exact number. It will cost the school system about $300,000 for the full rate.
Okay, so we just added $300,000 to personnel. We're adding a position that we say is free. That math doesn't work. That's what I'm missing.
I didn't say
Looking
it's
at the-
free, I'm saying it's not going to increase what we're locally paying right
I
now.
got that. But the
Even
pay
with
raise
the raise.
the pay raise is, so we're talking about adding a
Yes, sir.
non-inexpensive position at the central office when we know we're going to get hit with a not insignificant dollar amount of pay raises that we have to pay for local funding.
We're taking all that into consideration, and it will not increase our local funds for salary.
And here's the other option, is we just tell schools not really ask them, kind of almost a mandate. But it's just, the alternative is, you know what, schools, if you want to apply for pre-K, that's fine. You know, the difference is we are making a commitment in something that's proven to have one of the most incredible successes to our students. The impact of this position is so huge over the hundreds of kids that you're going to be allowed to serve. You know, we've got 300 or so, that's just OSR, is that right? That's not counting our Title I pre-K, or is that?
That's a combination.
Combination.
One in.
So, you know, we're looking at increasing that substantially, and you're almost adding an entire, we're getting close, and every year, no matter what the state budget is, even last year, the governor's priority is to add to pre-K. Well, we're the best in the state at getting those grants. We're really good at writing them, and we're really good at, and the reason they award them to us is because we're really good at maintaining them. We were at risk in a couple places in our non-Title I schools of losing those because we don't have the district oversight of that. So we need that to help grow the pre-K program.
I understand it. My question is how are we paying? And I don't see how it's not costing the school system money.
It does, but we're going to find a way. That's the priority.
Well, then let's say it's going to cost the school system.
It is. And
Mr.
that,
Anderson, I'm in over and above what we're paying this year for salaries, personnel costs. My first question when they brought this to me is how we were going to fund it, and we started looking at staffing and different way how that would look. But I'm not going to mislead you into saying that it will not increase our local personnel cost budget.
So are you saying 300,000 with the, what did you say, with the raise and this? It would
An
increase?
estimate, I don't yet
I
know how this
okay.
raise is going to look with the 4%,
2%, right.
But that includes our support staff that are locally funded, because OCE doesn't cover all of those salaries.
Right.
And that's an
Yeah,
estimate.
I understand. I'm just concerned that at the top number level, we have at a cost because of this raise, and with the unknown of that, we're establishing a position now. When are we going to fill this position?
We have to, it would come up for a vote at the end of the month, and then we would look probably towards the end of the school year. We'd like to have it June 1st.
So we're going to do it on this year's budget. How are we paying for that?
we're going to be, we'd hope to have it filled in the summer when it starts.
Which
So,
is this year's budget.
When
So how are we
school
paying for
starts,
that?
it would repay 1 month's salary out of this year's budget.
Okay.
In September.
And that's, honestly, we've had, Walnut Grove has had an opening in the principal there. There's, we've had other gaps. When people retire, we don't immediately fill those, so that would fill the need for the rest of this budget.
And I'd like to see those full numbers before we spend money on this. It's one thing to appoint a position. I'd like to see the full numbers and the cost.
Before we hire somebody?
Before we spend money.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, in our larger pre-K programs, the
Yes, sir.
ones, for example, that take, special need kids from
Mhm.
other schools, and we do have some, Hazel Green Elementary, for example,
Yes,
is a
sir.
very large program. And it's my understanding we don't count those children in the ADM to give them local administrative support through assistant principals. Why is that? Is that our rule? Is that
I'm going to have to defer that to you.
Yeah.
That is stated in the Madison County Board of Education guidelines that you guys have established. It's part of in there that says that the pre-K enrollment does not count towards allocation of assistant principal units.
Whereas and that the growth in this program is astounding, and I agree with Ms. Stowe that it serves a great need. But if we're putting emphasis on this to encourage our schools to grow these programs, but yet we don't give them, local administrative support. For example, Hazel Green, if you were to count those, I think they would get an additional AP as opposed to losing one that could theoretically give the
Right.
intent of what we're doing here through an assistant principal.
And the reason is kind of what Jeff kind of mentioned before. If we want to be careful about, as we're growing this program, this pre-K program, and that's a board document, the assistant principals, but that's not how the state funds assistant principals. If we did that, Hazel Green wouldn't be the only school that would qualify for additional assistant principal units, and all of that would be locally funded. If we counted them, we could look at needing to add 3 or 4 schools would qualify for that. And we're trying to find some other workarounds to be able to provide some support, and we're going to talk about that with principals through staffing. But it's the fear of adding this and 3 or 4 more. If it was just one, that would be the thing, but it would be, those are extended contracts, end up being pretty expensive local funded positions too. So we just want to, it's something that's in the future I'm okay with being open with, to looking, but it's more than just one school that would be affected. It would be multiple with that cost. A pretty significant amount there. So that's the other thing with hoping with this specialist could actually provide some pre-K support to all of our schools with pre-K too.
I'd like to see a breakdown of that, of what it would look like with schools that have pre-K programs, what their assistant principal allocation would be from our.
Okay.
If we did count them.
Yeah. And
What it would look like with pre-K added to their ADM for
we can do that.
assistant
We've done it.
I know it's going to cost more money, but I felt all along we need to count them, because they're counted in their numbers every day.
And we're making we want to count them coming up, and we want to at least, our students, our principals in their contracts, they get a per student stipend with that. And I would like to count them with that. That's going to be a proposal for that, to at least count them for their salary, because they don't even count towards their, as part of their contracts either. So that's one of the things we're looking at. We're analyzing the cost of that. But, as far as earning units for, and it's not just assistant principals, but it's also support staff, and, that would, all of that is, would kind of come in. So
And
we
I
can
think-
look at, we can create a mock of that, of what it would look like.
Sure. They're responsible for those kids, and
Yes.
And the first 9 weeks, I think, some of them are very challenging.
I guarantee you.
But what was happening, it was, some schools chose not to have pre-Ks because that's why some of their schools chose not to. So at least they're all going to be in the same boat of not counting them. And Scary Bass is shaking her head of not getting credit for that. So, but, because she's the principals that deal with pre-Ks, get an extra star or badge or whatever, because they're going well above and beyond, and we want to help provide some support to that.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the supervisor of student services position. This was something that was brought up a while back, and would like to bring it up for discussion now, or as information, and would be for approval at the next board meeting, since this position has run through policy for supervisor of student services. The reason for that is this position is demanding much more than it was as a coordinator, as far as where it fits in. This position deals with incredibly complex Title IX issues. They've got to be an expert in the law. And we're going to be expanding the social work program to oversee that. So generally, it needs an upgrade and from where it sits in there. So that's something that's kind of been on the radar for a while. So that is what I would like to propose at the next board meeting. This fits in. The difference in this position from coordinator to supervisor fits in and is from all of our, kind of the reconfiguration and reorganization that we've done, from changing instead of 3 instructional directors to have 1 instructional director with that, creating that supervisor line that's between coordinator and director, is allowing this to be back at a salary neutral position where we were about a year and a half ago with those given positions in there.
So it's not going to be a director's pay position, it's going to be,
The supervisor pay was in the middle between the director and coordinator pay on there. There was about a $20-some-odd thousand gap between there, really too big of a gap. And so that's what that supervisor line kind of allows that step.
Can you send that back out to us, the pay scale for that, because it's not in our, you know,
The salary schedule.
yeah, it's not in the, you know, this year's salary schedule that I've got saved on my computer. Maybe I just don't have the right one saved.
It's
So-
on the web, it's updated on the website.
On the website.
But we'll send that back out to you.
Well, no,
Yes, ma'am.
I can't pick up the website. I didn't go there. I saved it somewhere from
I'm not sure if the org chart is most current on our website. I don't see, it says that this past position we were talking about, it reported to supervisor of instruction, is that right? I don't
Yes,
see
sir.
supervisor of instruction. on
Yeah, and we're gonna, and yes, it needs to be updated. We're gonna see what you guys are gonna do with these 2 positions before bringing that up for approval. Again,
But we have established a supervisor
We
of
did,
instruction.
and it had who he was reporting to. We just hadn't posted it yet because we knew these were coming up.
Well, maybe we need to see what it would look like with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm curious to
Okay.
kind of.
We'll send out a
see
draft.
how that. And we've added a few positions here or there recently, and these 2 that are proposed now, central office positions. Do you have kind of have an org chart and master plan of where are we headed with the restructuring?
Yeah, with our org chart, we kind of have the main, to simplify down the main piece there with our directors and supervisors, and then kind of each director will sort of have an extra and a separate org chart, because the one when I got here, it looked like a labyrinth on there, and so we're simplifying that.
So you can get us a
Yeah.
master plan of where we're going?
Yeah.
so will this be eliminated in your position?
Yes, we won't serve a supervisor and coordinator. You know, the coordinator of people service and supervisor of student service. We won't have 2 at the same time.
So will we delete the other position?
We won't have both at the same time, so we'll do something. So yes. When we fill the supervisor of student services,
So why would student services change who they report to if we're deleting that position?
the supervisor of student services will report to the director of personnel and people services.
Okay.
We still have a director of personnel and
So
people
you- I thought you
services.
said instruction, okay. Okay, I thought he said, okay, so he gave it an example, and I just thought that was very good.
Any other questions about that? And I'll get that information to you guys. All right. Mr. Solly, still here. As he waltzes over, he's going to be discussing kind of a 2-in-1 here. This is, by law, we have to have a virtual school policy. We've been talking about this for a while, but we've received a grant to allow us to get a boost to kind of build our virtual school. There's a very exciting program that we're going to start, so it's kind of a 2-in-1. It's actually not just the virtual school, but also the method that we will be implementing it.
It's okay, I want to
reverse the order of the agenda there and talk about the policy first, and then I'll talk about the agreement. But I wanted the board to know that we put together a steering committee of educators throughout the county, administrators, teachers, people from all walks, to kind of use as a sounding board in the development both of this draft policy and just to get ideas and looking toward what we're going to be doing with our virtual school. And these are the individuals that are serving on that committee. We had a meeting on Monday of this week, and it was really, it was very good, very helpful for me to hear from them, kind of get their feedback on what we're thinking as a district. Had an opportunity to talk about the policy with them and get their feedback on things that possibly we may need to look at adding or, changing, deleting in that. So just wanted you to know that. As I think all of you are already aware, Act 2015-89 requires that our Board of Education approve a policy that allows us as a school system to provide a virtual education to grades 9 through 12 is what the law requires. And you'll see in our policy we're going to ask to expand that a little bit. But in the law, it asks that these 4 bullets be addressed in the policy: the scope and delivery, student eligibility requirements for monitoring and testing, and attendance requirements. That's what the law requires that the policy address. And again, you'll see when we talk about it in just a minute that we've added a few extra things that we feel like need to be addressed in policy for the implementation of a virtual school. Excuse me. These are some other things that are mentioned in the law that I think it's important to know. We're not required to use a certain vendor. The state has a virtual course or a virtual hub of courses called Access. Okay, we can use that, but we can use an outside vendor, or we can use a blend of things if we want to. Anybody that attends our virtual school has to be enrolled in our school system. Okay, so even if a student's going to go to our virtual school, they have to be a student in one of our schools. Students that are enrolled in virtual or that are participating in virtual school do have to do state testing, and they're part of our accountability requirements. If they graduate using that option, they would receive a diploma from the school that they're enrolled in. And students can participate in extracurricular activities if they choose to do the virtual school option, and all of that's protected by this law. One of the things that I thought it was important to note, this is on, I believe, page 3 of this particular act, but it talks about the things that local boards of education are exempt from, okay, in implementing a virtual school. And I think these are I thought those were pretty important bullets to hit. The fact that laws that kind of govern students' physical presence in school, monitoring security, staffing requirements, what kind of space you use, time requirements, physical education requirements, all of that, the board is exempt from following necessarily current practice, okay, and we can develop that either through policy or procedure. So kind of with that, prior to the meeting, I gave each of you a handout with the draft policy and have sent that to you. So I guess I just wanted to open it up for your comments or questions about anything specific to this. Maybe just something else to mention before you do. Part of the committee, and I think this is something that we probably still need to vet out through the policy advisory part. I think the 2 things that our steering committee had questions about was how do we want to handle attendance, okay? How specific do we want to be in policy, or do we want to remain, I guess, a little more general in policy and then address attendance more specifically in our procedure manual? And then the other thing was that we will have admission requirements. There will be this won't just be come one, come all. I mean, students will have to apply to go to this and demonstrate that they have the capability of learning in this style, and that they have something in their academic background that indicates that they've got an opportunity to be successful doing this type of learning. So those were a couple of things that the committee brought up in going over the policy, but interested to hear, as you've had a chance to look at it or whatnot, if you have, feedback on that or things you would like for us to look at further.
Tell us, what led you to include 7th and 8th grade?
Yeah, that was a question from the committee, and I really think, Mr. Nash, it's just really to expand the opportunities to our students. We are looking at our PACE staff kind of being the hub for this, okay? And they already deal with students in 7 through 12. Certification requirements for teachers are the same in grades 7 through 12. So as we talked about it and we looked at, okay, who's our audience, okay, that may be interested in doing this, I really was kind of afraid to limit it just to high school. I thought, okay, we're really not, by adding grades 7 and 8, we're kind of dealing with the same people that are going to teach the 9-12 kids. They can, they're certified to teach the 7-8 kids. I think the target audience initially is that group, okay? And so that was sort of the rationale for including them, but
Does our target audience include our kids in our community that are homeschooled? Is that?
they would have to enroll in our schools in order to participate in our virtual school program. But yes, I mean, I think, I think year one of this, I think having it grades 7 through 12, we will learn how, anytime you do something new, there's going to be a learning curve with it. And I think keeping it to these grades early on, or for the first year, I think we will, I feel confident we'll figure out, the best practice and how to do this. We would like to expand it to include other grade levels. Right now, we do not have a curriculum that would address below, depending on what happens with the vendor that we're talking about, or even if we just use Access, we would be limited to 7th grade and up with that. So we'd have to look at some options there for curriculum if we chose to do elementary grades. But to go back and address your question, yes, I think our homeschool population in Madison County, I think one time our numbers were there's about 1,000 students in Madison County that are in our attendance zones that are homeschooled. Hopefully this would be something that would bring them into our schools, but give them an option to still have some control over their learning style, their learning.
Well,
So.
the way that I understand this, and, I'm kind of predicting that, which I think a lot of people are, that is, a great opportunity for some of the homeschool population. And that being said, I'd like to suggest that we maybe reach out to that community and bring them to the table, because the advantages are obvious for us as a school system. We're providing that service through virtual schools,
Right.
but yet we get the state money
Right.
for them. So
I think the steps in that, and talking with Mr. Massey, kind of what the timeline may look like. Obviously, from my perspective, I need y'all, I need a board-approved policy so I know kind of the firm foundation that I'm standing on, okay, that I know, yes, we're moving forward with this and whatnot. So introducing this to you tonight is kind of the first step in that. We'll talk some more about the curriculum provider and what we want to do with that moving forward. But I think those are two critical pieces that we have to have in place to go to the community and say, everybody, this is what Madison County Schools is going to do, and this is why we think it can be a benefit to your child. So before the end of this school year, once whatever we're going to do there is in place, I hope we can kind of do somewhat of a PR campaign to say, this is what we're offering. And this is why we think it could be beneficial to your child. And if that means hosting, parent meetings at schools or whatnot, getting flyers out, getting, media involved and whatnot, that's kind of the thought process that we're having right now.
On the attendance part of it, I understood you to say that it was intentional to make an attempt to give some flexibility
Right.
there.
Right.
But the way that's written, it kind of says both things. It kind of, first paragraph kind of strongs arms it, and then the second paragraph says, superintendent and/or designee could do something different.
Yeah.
That jumped out at me, that it was kind of
And-
saying two things there.
Well, I think one of the attractive things to a certain group of population that may be interested in virtual school is going to be the flexibility that that type of learning provides. And the more stipulations and whatnot that we put in that say you have to do this every day or you have to do that, I just think it stifles that flexibility kind of thing. However, I also feel like to protect the integrity of the course and whatnot, we do have to have something that says, you know what, if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing in this, if you're not, kind of being successful or kind of following the plan, we do have the right to say, you know what, your attendance, we can tighten that up, or, it certainly can be reasons to be removed from the program if if they're not doing their part, So, but that was kind of why probably those two, the thought process behind those two paragraphs, so.
Is there data to support your position of wanting to include the 7 and 8? That just kind of, again, jumped out at me, that are they ready for that? Are they mature enough to take that responsibility at that age?
Well, I think, one, it's why there's an application process, so I think we vet out each student. I think each one's an individual when they come in, and we kind of, as professionals, kind of sit down and decide, not only is the student ready to do this, is the parent, do they have the support at home or, around them in some way that's going to help them be successful. I think there's going to be actually multiple tiers of students that take advantage of this. I envision there's going to be a group of students that are highly capable academically that can take a virtual program, learn probably with minimal support from a teacher or tutor or whatnot and stuff. Then I think there's going to be other tiers, another tier of student that is probably sound academically, but traditional schools just not that 8:30 to 3:30 day for whatever reason, it just doesn't work for them. But this may, with some support. And then there's probably going to be an at-risk component to this where, that they need significant support, but again, the traditional school's not the best, mode of learning for them. So, I think knowing that we're going to have different kinds of students leads us to trying to make a policy that can fit all those different kind of styles and stuff, so.
I think this is my last question. You mentioned the application process. Will that be defined by policy or by procedure?
I think procedure would be the application process. Yeah.
I could see there being some, I would suggest that we have a very defined application process
Right.
there, because I could see some, my kid got in, his didn't.
Right.
Some tension there, so I think that would be a big part of it.
Okay.
If a regular student is enrolled in a traditional classroom, like in the small high schools, they have very few opportunities to take some of these, these extra courses,
Right.
the additional curriculum. Would they be allowed to just register, say, for, just an extra class?
I was going to address that some, actually talking about the product, but
Okay.
absolutely, and that was one of the things that the committee really stressed is, is this curriculum, whatever it is it only going to be for a student that's enrolled full-time in virtual school, or will it be available to students that are in the local school, as you said, need to pick up an extra class, need it for credit recovery, credit advancement, all those other kind of flexible options to allow a child to either stay on track, get ahead of, ahead of schedule or whatnot. But yes, that will be available.
I have a question, probably from Ms. Thompson. Is it legal for a policy to say, and this is an authority question by Alabama state law, this policy twice says the superintendent can take whatever action is necessary. That could get into spending money and other things that the superintendent doesn't currently have authority to do. So if you look at this 713.3.
Right.
There's a couple times in there where it says superintendent just go do whatever you want to do. I know the superintendent's charged with, he or she is charged with day-to-day operation of school. But that's significantly different than you're authorized to do whatever you want to do to implement.
I agonized over the wording of that. I was kind of surprised in our meeting the other day. I really thought that would jump out to somebody, and I didn't want to say it to them and kind of predispose them to that. But they didn't mention it. But I don't know. Again, trying to going back to Mr. Nash's question of, okay, you want to make this policy where it fits a lot of different people, but at some point in time, somebody has to have the authority to say, okay, we don't know every situation that's going to come up, and I guess how to word, there may be a better way to word that and stuff, so.
My problem is the words,
yeah.
to take whatever action may be necessary.
And to reword that.
Gets into areas where our superintendent
Yeah.
unintentionally could put himself in legal jeopardy.
Yeah.
By something the state law doesn't allow him to do. So that's why I asked the question to you, how can that be worded where we're not impeding in all the implementation of this day-to-day like the superintendent's supposed to be doing?
Well, you could.
But it's the whatever action necessary, just kind of.
Yeah. To change the wording to kind of maybe.
You could add a phrase within state law after necessary.
Within state, or something like that, just
Yeah.
so there's
We
not a
could work on that
situation
wording.
where, well, the board policy allowed me to do this, we have, but the state law doesn't, and suddenly we have a superintendent in a legal situation that
If-
we unintentionally created.
Maybe if
can't
Ms.
supersede.
Thompson, if you have some maybe better verbiage, if you could send that to me, I'll change that before it goes to policy advisory
I'll work on
and
that
do that,
tomorrow.
so.
Yeah, because I just don't think we're allowed to have a policy that rates that much.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
I have one question, and it'll take me just a second to get there. I want to say that I appreciate this. I've had lots of students over the years that I think could have been helped by this hybrid opportunity to be able to take a couple classes. And I know we don't need to probably put it exactly in the policy, and I'm not sure where it would fit, but I can think of at least 4 students off the top of my head that could probably take their full load in high school daytime and take 3 of these classes in the afternoon and would very much try to do so and graduate by, 15 and a half. They probably also would burn themselves out and by 17 not feel real good about going to school anymore.
Yeah.
But will we have any limits on how many classes a day, period? I think some universities, as a college freshman, you can only take 12 or 18 hours. You can't sign up for 24 hours. Will we have something to protect students from going, I'd love to take that and sign up for 2 or 3 classes along with their full load?
We talked, that came up in our committee the other day. Do we place limits? And kind of our take was no, but I think, obviously, somebody's going to have to use some judgment in what they allow somebody to do. I mean,
Correct.
a student can't just go to this and take it. They have to be given authorization to do it. So I think that checks and balance. I hate to, again, the beauty of this is the flexibility. There may be I'm quite certain there are a lot of our students that could handle that course load, and they want to work ahead. They want to graduate early. They, for whatever multitude of reasons, kind of thing. And I guess sort of the consensus of the committee and myself is, why won't we let them? If they're capable and they've demonstrated the ability to do that, and their parents are on board, and you know, I don't know. We were a little hesitant to say you can only take this many credits during the course of a year or during a semester or whatnot, but certainly something we can, you know, revisit and take under advisement. So.
I guess it'd be like anything else. If you see a child's having difficulty, then you let them back in.
Yeah. You know, there will be an orientation for parents and students who are admitted into this program, and, you know, I think that's I think they have to understand there are benchmarks you have to maintain to have the freedom to, you know, again, I think there will be different levels to work totally independently. If you maintain these grades, this level, good. You go for it, you know. But if you don't, then there's going to be some face-to-face time. There's going to be some of that, you know, I think a safety net there to keep somebody from just bombing and nobody ever knowing about it, you know. So that's that would be the thought process with that. And I did, well, go, I'm sorry. Did you have another question?
I just wondered who's going to oversee this at central office.
Yeah. Right now, again, we're looking at PACE being the host school, so the administrator there would be the boots on the ground person that would, you know, oversee the implementation of orientations, advising students. They have a counselor there, their staff, whatnot, is what the thought is right now. So.
Will each child have the label of one of our 5 high schools?
Yes. They will be there can be a student at Hazel Green High School that never darkens the door of that building that will be a Trojan. You know, and if they meet graduation requirements, they'll get a diploma from Hazel Green, and it will be as if they, you know, sat in class every day for 4 years. So
They can participate in sports.
they can participate, if they live in that attendance zone, they can participate in that extracurricular athletic or activities, and yep.
And across the board, like, for example, we talked about APs a while ago. They would be counted.
They're on their ADM. It will appear as though they are a student attending their school every single day. That's correct. They will be funded for them and, you know, treated that way. So
Schools will receive their teaching units based on that. Also.
If a child does something of a mixed schedule, where perhaps the first 2 hours of the day they're doing virtual and they come in for another class, we will
Right.
not be responsible for their transportation, is that
no.
correct? That would be a lot.
And that student would not be considered part of our virtual school. If it's a hybrid schedule, you know, we've talked to our high schools that, hey, this will give you an opportunity to offer some blended learning classes. If they want to offer one class, again, if we can work this out through iNow and, you know, some of the detail stuff at the district level, I don't see why they can't do that. I mean, you know, but that student really, you know, if they go to school part of the day at their home school, I really don't see them. They're not a virtual school student per se. That school is just using that virtual curriculum to enhance what they're doing at the local level. So.
And we see this perhaps being used with our 7 through 12 homebound students.
It certainly, a virtual curriculum certainly could be, yes, used with others as well.
That's really why we didn't want to leave out the 7th and 8th when we could very well deliver that.
Any other?
You plan to roll this out 16, 17 school year?
By law.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know I thought you just had to have a policy in place.
Well, the policy says you have to offer the opportunity for grades 9 through 12 to be able to take virtual courses and stuff. We would like to begin, again, depending on what we do with a vendor for curriculum and stuff, we really would like to implement that in our summer school so that we can kind of get a head start to see on how kids are interacting with it and those kind of things would be our goal.
Well, I haven't been tracking Senate Bill 229, Senator Brubaker's bill,
Right.
where he's trying to establish a statewide virtual school. So until that's dead, we probably don't need to spend any money, right?
Well, I don't know. To
But I mean,
predict what the
that would
legislature will
just,
do. And
That would just
I'm not
allow
sure.
our students to enroll in somebody else's virtual school.
It would, but
They
it
could
is.
still do ours.
Which those opportunities exist already, like with Athens City, they offer that. Students from across the state can purchase their curriculum from them and, do that, so. I'm not sure, Ms. Stowe, if that
I'm
should
not
drive
either.
our.
I'm hoping it'll just, I don't think it's very good for the state. I think each system should be.
Definitely a concern, yeah. I think leaving that at the local level definitely is the right thing to do. Just kind of segueing into the agreement part of this, and just a few things. If we're talking about this and we talk about ad minimum and we talk about Plato, we're really talking about the same thing. Ad minimum is the company. Plato is the actual name for the curriculum that we are asking to consider and whatnot. But with that, we would get a secondary academic library and a career tech library, and I've given you a handout that includes the courses that are in those two libraries. We did receive an at-risk grant that would allow us to pay for the first year of this with no cost to the system or whatnot. But to get the best pricing, we would like to do a 3-year agreement, so there would be 2 additional years. And these, Ms. Stowe, to go back to your question, these are just a quick list of some of the things that I feel like this curriculum would help us address, both obviously our virtual school, credit recovery, credit advancement, blended learning, elective courses that some of our schools maybe don't currently offer. And that's just some of the things that I think that this does. Some of the reasons why we chose this one, we looked at 2 primary vendors, Adminum and Odysseyware, and we looked at those because in talking to other districts that were a little further along in this process, several people I talked to, those were kind of the 2 people they were using, had a lot of good things to say about, both the curriculum and the customer service and those kind of things, so we kind of focused our attention on them. But one of the big selling points that kind of led us to Adminum is obviously we've rolled out Canvas this year, which is been a pretty big undertaking for our system, our learning management system, and Adminum interfaces really well with Canvas. So even teachers that that are not involved in virtual school or whatnot, they can pull lessons from Plato and embed that in their Canvas courses or whatnot and stuff. So I think it will just enhance our, gives us something else to enhance our current curriculum with. Obviously, students have 24/7 online access. We have the ability to customize courses, even though they have ready-made courses. If we don't like something in it, we can take it out. We can make it Madison County. We have that ability to do that. Expands course offerings, provides opportunities for acceleration, flexibility, and the courses align with Alabama College and Career Ready standards. We are looking, based on what happens with the acceptance of the agreement, one of the, I guess probably for me, the big timeline push with this is I need to get people trained before school ends. And the company has eyes wide open. It's, this isn't our decision to make, but depending on how we move forward with this as a system and a board, we have kind of put a plan in place to try to get training started, but with the understanding that, if we choose to go another direction, then we'll handle this differently. But getting PD in before the end of the school year is pretty critical. I think, one, obviously because we wanted to do something with summer school, but even if we don't, I think we need to get some of our teachers trained in this prior to the start of the school year so that it'll have the best chance to be successful. So questions about the agreement or the
Who do we know
company?
that school systems that have used this program?
Yeah. Morgan County is probably the one that I've talked to the most. They've had it for, I think, I believe he told me 5 years. It's 3 to 5 years or whatnot and stuff. So, they've been using it. Gosh, Mr. Massey, I don't, if
We
you.
actually got some friends from Morgan County back
Morgan
here.
County
But,
back here?
Yeah, Morgan
Okay.
County's been using this, and they, at Brewer High School, Huntsville City has also used it for their at-risk area. The big selling point, and what really set Edmond apart for us, was that teachers can use this full-fledged in their curriculum. They literally, this can almost be sort of their textbook. And so it's not just for, that's why we're looking at a district license. This is something that's more than just virtual school. It's something that can be used by every teacher. Actually, our sixth grade teachers can even use it, even though, we're not bringing them to virtual school. But the curriculum that comes with this package is from grade 6 through 12, all the way up through advanced placement courses. So
I
it's,
believe I'm correct. Hartselle, Marshall County were just some of the other local ones but it's my understanding, like I said, between it and the other vendor, they're pretty well have the market in North Alabama for sure, so.
You'll flip to the order form
Mhm.
there. There's a column on that first page that is labeled discount applied.
Okay.
Is that for not doing it year by year, for doing the 3-year, or is that unrelated?
That is my understanding, Mr. Nash, is that doing a 3-year agreement, that's the best pricing that the best pricing plan they can give us.
That's not necessarily public knowledge area on that discounted price. They obviously want to keep that confidential.
Well, I didn't say numbers.
All right, just
That was
before-
intentional.
Any other
That's
questions?
question.
He said it first.
I did. I'm sorry. What?
No, we're good. They've been really good to work with as far as, and with the professional development and meeting kind of what our budget has, so. All right, any other discussion on the ed minimum or the virtual school policy draft? Thank you, Tim. All right, Carrie, to discuss the land near Owens Crossroads School and the computer service bid, and you ready?
Yes. I'll just stand here, I'm not pretty loud, and I look good under the lights. But anyway,
Well, you're 1 for 2.
that's what it is. The Owens Crossroads land, there's an acre and a half of land. We've purchased about 7 to 9 acres of land several, about 10, 12 years ago. Down, it sits on the east side of Owens Crossroads School, and actually sits past where they have a bus entrance with about a 200-foot strip, and it runs all the way, pulling into the property all the way back to the ditch area. We don't use that property at this time. I don't see us ever use that property anytime. It's a little bit of a low area. The nursing home just to the east would like to purchase an acre and a half of that property. They want to expand their parking lot, not for a building, but just put a parking space on, because they are going to expand the building a little bit. And they just kind of want to know if we're willing to sell it. I think this time, I've talked to the county commissioner, I've also talked to the mayor there. They had plans at one time to put a gymnasium at that location. That was also about 10 years ago. They haven't found any funding since then. They don't see any funding available in the next 3 or 4, however many years it's going to take. But what I did offer up to them at that time, if they ever do find the funding, we do have a lot more property that sits beside the school and a little bit further back behind the school also. It would actually be a better location for a gymnasium. Like I said, it's a little bit of a lowland, so parking lot, it would work best for a building, it would be kind of expensive building.
Will we caveat the sale with the fact that it's not for construction purposes, parking on it?
Yeah, absolutely, we sure can. The packet I'd sent out on this shows the expansion, it shows it is parking lot, but yeah, we can actually put that in the contract.
And the drainage, that's huge, because not done properly, it could flood Owens Crossroads School. So will that be in there?
Yeah, and that's one great advantage. They actually have a detention pond, behind their property currently, and whoever built that piece really needs to bleed all that water off that property in their detention pond, so they'll expand the size of that pond. behind the nursing home, and this was probably big enough to go into the ditch.
We don't really we need them to do that.
Oh, yeah, and they will. They will have to, because that's what all the water off that property. Nothing can go in front of the school, it'll have to go all backwards or to the north. And so we can write in the contract, verify that all the water leaves that property.
And it will in no way impede the traffic, or the bus traffic, or the car traffic going in and out of Owens Crossroads.
Not at all.
Because their entrance to their parking lot hopefully will be much further
Yeah,
down.
that's
Or
the
are they
point.
changing it?
They're not changing it, they're going to stay where it is, and
Yeah.
then they can get the parking once they get on there.
Okay.
But the drawing you gave us does in fact show a building.
Yep. The, here, you may have it, I mean. It actually does stretch in. Goes back, it does stretch into the tip of it there, I guess. Yeah, it does stretch into just to the eastern tip, the building expansion. As the property, if you take their property line, our property line right now, as you head west, it gets wetter as we go, because the ditch line actually runs right beside our bus route. Okay, anyway,
Thank you,
we'll be
Kerry.
back on the
Next one.
On the computer services server room bid, you'll have a copy of that also, came in at a great price. We got, and that's a dehumidifier, also brings in, it actually brings water in and dry air both into that room, so we keep the humidity levels just like it's supposed to be for their servers. It's got a halon system, and everything catch on fire when we put it out. It's a great mechanical system, and that's a complete package. We did a previous bid, where we put flooring, the walls, and everything else. So everything's done. We have this mechanical system in, and they'll be ready to move the servers hopefully sometime in June, this summertime.
Any questions?
All right. Kerry, do you want to bring up the discussion of the Hazel Green press box?
Yes, Hazel Green press box is in dire needs. Anyway, Mr. Long has requested a loan, I don't know if it's here or not, and Ms. O'Bannon looked over it, and this is one of those requirements, anything over $25,000, anything that requires footing, be approved by the board. And so I bring this to you to ask for permission for them to go ahead, to get the loan, and change that thing, I'll let you, Mr. Mullin. I'll share it.
This will be the biggest loan that we have at school, right?
I sent them the information, so they're aware of the loan and the loan payments. Yes, sir. But you want to go ahead with that before we?
Yeah, just real quick on the construction end of it, before we get into the money. It'll be demolished and put back up, and it'll be actually, we have them at New Hope, well, the visitor side, Hazel Green, several locations where these press boxes, and they're pre-made, they sit up, they tie into the bleachers. A great system, they meet every code. This will have to go to the Alabama State Building Commission for approval. They don't have, like I said, footings, roof, foundation, walls, electrical, mechanical in it. So it's a pretty good sized project. Elevator? It will not have an elevator because it falls under the required minimum. Yes. And no sprinkler system either. So we're sure of that.
So it's not access required?
No, it's not. From the, yeah, only from the front. That's right. There's a few things like the modify the bleachers, but not like some previous press boxes we've done in the past. Under 499 square feet, you're free to pretty much put it in place.
How can we saddle the Booster Club with this much money in repayments
That's more caring.
and still us approve?
That's
Yeah, that's,
right. For the current payment will not change, and I'll get to answer your question. information so you can see that it could go 15 years, and we have, if you remember, Mr. Anderson, the only time I remember we pulled TVA money and actually floated a bond issue when Mr. Smith was here, and it went, Hazel Green opted not to participate. So our monies were tied up that long, our TVA money, that one other time. This is the only other time I can recall that. But I wanted you to have the information, and Mr. Nash may want to share more about it, but he asked Mr. Massey to go ahead and put this on the agenda, and so I wanted you to have all the information so that you could make an informed decision. Right now, they can well manage their payments. 4 years down the road, it'll be negotiable. The interest rate will, is 3.82 right now. But they're like any other loan, even our warrants, the terms are considerably longer than more that we do.
But it sure seems to me that looks like what they're doing is every other sport on campus will be wholly dependent on the booster club, because they just tie up all of the school's unaccounted for funds for 15 years.
They also could use some of their proceeds in their public money as well through the football.
At this point, I'm not worried about football programming.
Right.
They're knocking it out of the park here. I'm worried about softball, the basketball team, baseball, soccer.
As far as contributing to payroll.
The ability for them.
Yes.
For 15 years,
Do anything
there's
else.
no TVA money for any sport except football. That's what this says, right?
That's correct. They have addressed, they took a move for baseball.
Right, they just did the major work there, I understand that. But 15 years?
And Mr. Anderson, 15 years is based on if that payment remains the same. If they're able to pay more when they renegotiate every 4 years, that could change, and it might not be a 15-year term. That's just what it looks like if the payment remains the same.
Well, I guess I'm just saying, wow, Mr. Nash, this is your community, and this is what they want to do at their school. As long as it meets our financial requirements. And
We have everything we need, but it's not my decision to.
it's not my decision to tell them whether or not this is wise. It's like, wow.
I have never liked saddling parents that aren't even in the program with money like this.
We're talking preschool kids will be paying this loan.
Well,
Be on grade level.
that's not entirely accurate. The specific questions that I've asked about this are how is, the $40,000 is obvious. That's TVA money that, but you've still got that balance over and above that. Is where is that money coming from? The answer to that is entirely football gate. Entirely. This is not booster club fundraising. This is not selling cookies or T-shirts. It's entirely the gate. So the way that our principals are given, discretion as to, the best way they choose to manage their athletic facilities when it comes to not only the TVA money, but the proceeds from whether it be concessions at a sporting event, gate, parking, and Carrie, you can speak with much more credibility than I can, but the condition of this press box is, quite frankly, it's atrocious.
And I hear you. I guess my problem is the gate money has never went to the booster club. It's not saying that this money's it's going to come from the gate money. It's saying the booster club account.
Yes, and that's the reason that leading up to this meeting, I asked that specific question is, yes, it is worded in there that it's the booster club. This is not.
He also said
And-
that in school football
Yes,
accounts,
both.
and that would be your gate money.
So it would be booster club loan. but-
Yeah, this would not be a
It is,
booster
but
club.
it is some fundraising. It's going to have to be for that sentence to be in there.
That's not the answer I was getting.
Well, then they need to take that sentence out.
I don't disagree with that.
We should not saddle our booster clubs with $23,000 a month.
Well, we're saddling the school with it.
I mean, year, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're saddling the school with that.
Whatever.
And the school can come up with it through gate receipts, you know, and.
Well, then let's pull that booster club out.
Well, I would disagree with that. I think what Mr. Long is saying here is he's going to get it paid.
Yeah.
I think, again, I'm not going to comment on what they're doing to the entirety of their athletic program, football press box. But
I would say this about Mr. Long. Of course, he runs a great program. You know, he brought the baseball, they were offside, brought them on side, got the fields built, got the batting facility built, press box. He is really good at following through. Forgetting that for a minute, because things do happen. When he first told me out there at the press box, my first thought was, we'll just spend a little money and we'll fix it up, because he doesn't have $250,000. But when we looked at what repairs need to be made, it'll be just about the same cost to even make the repairs or bring it up even close to current codes to make it what it needs to be.
yeah, because once you touch it,
Yeah, and that's, and you know that, yeah, better than I do, that once we touch it, we're in trouble, and we can't spend near $250 and bring it up to code and make it a good functional press box.
Well, the sad part about all of this is that we do not have local money in Madison County to properly fund athletics. And, you know, it puts everything back on the parents. And it, you know, we all wish that was different, because this is mind-boggling that people would be paying this kind of money for that long. But
And the other thing that you said, David, that's not entirely accurate is putting this on the shoulders of the Booster Club when it's our, you know, parents that are, kids may be in pre-K right now that are coming up. The reality is, if the school defaults on this loan, it's putting it on us as a board. It's not, I mean, they're not going to come after
I've said
that kid's parents and say,
That's right.
you've defaulted on your loan. They're going to come to us.
They still come to us no matter if they go get the money or not. I mean, they come to us. Anytime a parent organization goes and gets money, funds, to do something on our campus, they come to us and just want us to bail them out every time.
Well, we haven't bailed a single TVA, well.
Yeah, yes, we have.
Who'd we bail out?
Huh?
Who'd we bail out?
Y'all bailed out people before I come on board. This board did.
Well, this is up for approval for tonight, so they can try to get it up and ready before this football season. So
It is on a real
it is-
tight schedule to get it completed.
So it's we'll be making the recommendation later in the special session. Thank you, Carrie. All right.
All right. Are we to zoning committee?
Yeah, next up is our zoning committee members. Now, is that the sign-in sheet or the sign-up to
Okay,
speak?
so this is the sign-in sheet for the zoning committee, and this is for the open meeting.
Okay. So we've got two things that's going to happen here. We had our zoning committee that was 13 working people that participated. We gave them an opportunity to come up and speak in light of the board passing the resolution in the last board meeting about the 11-12 configuration and the not supporting that movement. We're going to kind of re-talk and talk about where we are with things and some of the process that we've gone to. We invited the committee members here to be able to speak, and then in the special session, we actually have an open forum where anyone could have signed up to come and speak. And so for our zoning committee, we have 3 members, and that's Mr. Larry Severe, Mr. Gerald Dupree, and Ms. Lisa Novak. And you want to give the parameters?
Yeah, and I'm not going to read the parameters each time one of you come up. I'm going to read it once and assume that that clarifies it for all 3 of you, unless you need it reiterated in order to get started. But all comments will be limited to 5 minutes. We ask that you consolidate your comments as much as possible and pass up your opportunity to speak if your comment has already been made. You cannot say anything about any personnel, is that correct?
This is only about the high school.
Okay. And your name will be called in order in which you signed in. So our first speaker will be Larry Severe.
Yes, good evening. Larry Sevier. Hi there, Mr. Massey and board members. How you all doing today? This evening, it's already been a long evening, but I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you all this evening. And first of all, I want to just speak and say that when we put in the hours on that rezoning committee, I talked to several people in my community about this school, about the 9-12 school, because at that time there wasn't an option for a 9, 10, 11, 12 school. So just for the 9-12 school, I talked to several people about it, and they wanted the 9-12 school. They liked the idea of a new school. As we came to the committee and we started looking at the rezoning, and I started talking about how the zones were changing and how it could potentially leave some people out and separate the community, they didn't want it anymore. They didn't like the idea of separating the community. They didn't like the idea of you being on one side of the street, on the other side of the street, and you may not go to the new school. As we sat down and we started looking at the zones, and I mean, each one of us had the community hearts and the community minds in our hearts and minds as we sat down and went through several hours of tweaking numbers here, pulling from here, pulling numbers and trying to find out what is the best option for the schools. It was heart-wrenching. How could you tell one family, or how could you tell somebody they can't go because they live across the street? Or they can go because they live in a certain neighborhood and we got to pull this neighborhood in order to get the numbers just right. And so as we sat down and went through those and we discussed it as a committee, it was some people for the 9-12 school, and some people didn't want to build a school at all. We just feel like we should put the money in the buildings we have already. I mean, you got Madison Crossroads, I don't have anything to say about that building other than it's Madison Crossroads, it's old. You have several buildings that need repair in Madison County, and we're talking about building a new school. We thought at first it was for overcrowding. We found out it's not because of overcrowding, it's for opportunity, whatever. I mean, as a committee member, I feel like that our time should mean something. We came up with a good map, which is the final map after spending so much time, was map I. And I mean, we went through A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All right, so map I was the best map choice. We feel like it meets the criteria that was given. But we also feel that the community does not want a new school based on we're going to lose programs in the current school. I've had a parent talk to me about, I want the new school. I like the idea of having a new school, but not if it's going to cost us our engineering program, half our band staff, half our medical program, and things of that sort. The community feel like they don't know the full story. And without knowing the full story, right now they're hesitant to say new school or no school. 9, 10, 11, 12 was not on the option, not on the table. It was brought up. We said it was a good idea, but that's not what we were chartered for. We were chartered for 9 through 12. And so, but with 9, 10 being on the table or possible, I think the community would be more apt to look at that than totally saying 9, 12 separate school and let's separate our funds. You were just talking about a loan request for Hazel Green, and it was sad that we can't provide local funds to help our schools. Now you're talking about separating, taking helmets from a football team, taking trombones from the band and putting them over there in another place if you build a 9-12 separate school. Parents put time and money into raising that money so their kids can have the funds they need. They can have the uniforms, look proper. They can have the equipment they need because it's not provided. It's not provided. You don't have the local funds to provide that. You can say yes or no, we can, or we can't spend those funds, but you don't provide those funds. I don't think that's fair. But that's my time. Thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Dupree?
My name's Gerald Dupree. I'll say that Mr. Anderson asked me to be on the zoning committee. When he asked me to be on the zoning committee, he reminded me of several things. One, that there was a contract signed for a new high school. There were several projects that was done: Harvest, Madison County Elementary High School, New Hope High School, and the new Monrovia High School. All the projects were done except Monrovia High School. So I guess what I'm saying is this committee was not to decide if trombones or helmets were moved from one school to the other. Our job, as Jeff told me, was to set zone lines for a new high school. That was our only job. We did it. We did it diligently. We looked at, as Larry said, maps A through G. Mr. Massey brought a map in. Each time we met, there were exit sheets prepared. We did not know what they said or saw a cumulative report. So the next time we met, we got a new map. There was never an official vote taken by this zoning committee about a 9, 10, 11, 12 school. That was not our role. And we said over and over in the committee, that's your guys' job, not ours. That was not why we were chartered. We made a formal vote on what the zoning should have been. It was map H and map I when we finished. 7 of the 9 members present when we made the vote voted for map I. 2 of the 9 voted for map H. Again, I say there was never in this committee a formal vote taken for 9, 10, 11, 12. It was not our business. Our business was to set zones for 9 through 12 grade. So I guess I want to say in closing, there was a lot of hard work done by this committee. There has to be some honesty and integrity passed through the process. And in some cases, that hasn't always been true. Thank you.
Mr. Dupree, can I ask a question?
Pardon me?
Mr. Dupree?
Yes, sir.
Can you say one more time what the vote was on the H and the I? One more time. Y'all took a formal vote.
We took a formal vote. Map I was the vote that most of the members present at the time voted for. 7 out of the 9 that was present. Map H, there was 2 out of the 9 that voted. Understand that, to answer your question, Mr. Nash, that some of the members that were not directly involved, as time went on, began not to show up. So the numbers were about the people that were involved in the area. Some of the others were either not interested or had other reasons for not being there. That answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I think Lisa will probably.
If I may real fast, Mr. Nash, I was actually the one who recorded the vote, and I do have that if you'd like to see a copy of it. All right, good evening. My name's Lisa Novak. I have the distinct privilege of being one of the 13 members of the rezoning committee. Specifically, I was appointed by Mr. Anderson from District 5. Thank you very much for letting me come and address you this evening. I will briefly focus on 3 key points: how the committee functioned, clarification of the committee's involvement within the 9, 10, 11, 12 option, and discussion of the top 3 rezoning options voted by the rezoning committee. The rezoning committee first met on June 4th of last year. Our given mandate was to rezone Sparkman High School into 2 separate 9th to 12th grade schools using the requirements laid out by the Department of Justice that any rezoning plan would further desegregation. To the lesser extent, we were tasked to look at the free and reduced lunch numbers that each rezoning option would create in order to bring the student population of both schools a little bit more equally socioeconomically. The rezoning committee worked diligently, giving the following restrictions that were imposed on us. The rezoning committee was never allowed to act actually as a committee. It was stated to us during our first meeting that it was not our job as a committee to draw the zone lines. We were simply there to advise. We were not allowed to have direct access to any data being used to generate the potential zone lines. Everything had to be run through the superintendent's office. How could we make sure that every rezoning option had been worked and looked at unless we were able to look at the data for ourselves? In a way, while we were reviewing the maps, it felt like we were playing darts blindfolded, trying to see if a better option was out there. We asked if we would be presenting any of the proposed options to the community for feedback before we voted. We were told no. And at our final meeting, we were given time to talk in private while we decided the options in front of us. But we were also asked to vote specifically on two maps, Map A and Map G. Map A was what I called our baseline option. The committee identified this option as a best-case scenario during our first meeting, but that was it. When the committee voted, we were unanimous for removal of Map A because other options had been identified that furthered desegregation and was better for our community. Map G was the 9, 10, 11, 12 split campus option. For clarification, the split campus option was presented to us during our first meeting and was no way a product of this committee. It was solely an idea presented to us. We were asked during the meetings and in 2 exit surveys to compare the split campus option and other rezoning options. During our last meeting, the committee decided not to vote either for or against the 9, 10, or the 11, 12 option because it was not part of our mandate, since neither changed zone lines or further desegregation. You all received copies of my exit surveys. I felt as though that the addition of that into this committee was a way to avoid hard work and rezoning and the process ahead. And it was asking us to change the paradigm in the way our children were educated, and I did not feel as though that decision was meant for this committee at that time. The option could be the best idea in the world, and I would happily consider serving on a committee to look at it, but this rezoning committee was not the place. After careful consideration and review, the committee recommended 3 separate rezoning options that were measured using DOJ's baseline criteria, keeping the community intact and what would be a best fit for our school system. 9 out of the 13 members were present, and I was selected to record the vote. Map I received the number 1 vote. It received 7 votes as the first option and 1 as the second option. It provided a 0.7% difference racially between the 2 schools. The free and reduced numbers were never run, to my knowledge, on that option. Map H received 2 first-place votes and 6 second-place votes. It was a 1.4% difference racially. And Map E, this rezoning option, there was a third one, received 0 first-place votes, but was asked to be put in by 2 members and voted as their second-place vote. This map was unique because it extended northwest instead of northeast. It also had a racial difference of only 1.5. That original map, Map A, I believe that was a 2.9% difference. So all 3 of these were better than the baseline. In my personal opinion, any of these 3 options will be viable as either an acceptable option for the DOJ or a new baseline in which for us to work in partnership with the DOJ and NAACP to find an even better solution. I view this process as a marathon, not as a sprint. I welcome discussing each of these options in detail at any time with the school district, Mr. Massey, DOJ, or NAACP. I strongly believe that the school district's position will be strengthened if the DOJ and the NAACP were given opportunity to question directly the rezoning committee. In conclusion, are any of these options perfect? No. Is the split 9, 10, 11, 12 option perfect? No. Did the rezoning committee work in good faith and to the best of its ability to do what's right by the students and families? Yes. Thank you. Yes.
And I do want to say that I appreciate all the hard work. Having served on committees outside of this arena, it's difficult to show up and do that. My only question is, was there anybody on the committee that lives in that base? I know we had some representatives that do not live in the Spartan district. Did anyone in the committee fall out of the new high school zone?
Yes. There were, well, it was a variety. There were 5 from District 4, 5 from District 5. I want to say, Mr. Nash, you had an appointee who lived outside the district, and also Mr. Massey had appointees that also were not living in district.
Correct.
And, well, remember, there were 3 options approved, and I want to say yes.
Map I, that's the one that is that
You all remember? I want to say yes, because it was, yes. I can't necessarily 100% speak to who it was, but I know I personally always stated that I didn't care which high school I went to. I want the zone lines to be as fair, and we needed to complete our mandate as put forth by the DOJ the best we could with the numbers that they were given to us. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
All right, and so now that we're having an open discussion about this, we're going to go ahead and kind of use the opportunity to kind of sum up what they did. Tony, could you bring up a presentation over here and take it from there?
Yeah.
I got it, Tom. I got it. So our mission is to create and support high-quality public schools. I think it's important to talk about what is our mission? Why are we here? We're to create and support high-quality public schools that maximize student achievement, expand student opportunities, and prepare graduates for success in a globally competitive world. And that is our mission, and it should guide everything that we do. There's really 3 steps of approval that have to go through this. We have to get approval from the plaintiffs, which is the Justice Department, Legal Defense Fund, which is the works with the NAACP. We have to have approval from the federal judge and our Board of Education. Just kind of a timeline of some milestones of kind of what got us here. In 2010, we purchased from the new school. It's been talked about for over a decade. We purchased property on McKee Road, that's north of the school. A capital plan was approved for BRAC bonds in 2013. The BRAC agreement with the commission was in May of 2013. In August 2014, Pine Grove property was purchased, which was south of Sparkman. We formed a zoning committee there. I guess we formed it in May, but they first met in June. And in July, we made our submission, and we started our discussion with the plaintiffs, DOJ and LDF, about the potential 11-12 school. And we'll talk about kind of the path of getting there. The zoning committee was created by the board. They analyzed various opportunities for 11-12 schools. We also discussed the new 11-12 option. We never had a vote on there of the 11-12 or 9-12, but what we did in the first meeting was rated we had the committee rate whether a 9-12 or 2 9-12s or 11-12, and it was on a scale of 1 to 10, and the majority of those did rate the 11-12 higher. This is the Sparkman zone on the left side here, the full Sparkman zone, and so I just put a box around kind of the area where we're most focused on, which is the purple is the Monrovia Middle School District, and the light blue is the Sparkman Middle School different zone. So with all the maps that we looked at, and map A was kind of the start of internally what we had kind of come up with. We had about 10 maps before then. But this yellow zone here is in some form or fashion, in one of the maps or renderings that we had, the yellow zone is part of Monrovia Middle School zone that could potentially remain at Sparkman High School. There was a scenario in which everybody in the yellow zone stayed there. In the Monrovia Elementary Zone, which is east of Jeff Road, that's the easternmost portion, there was a scenario where all of those stayed at Sparkman High School. In the Legacy Zone, north of Douglas Road, is that area potentially stayed at Sparkman High School. And in the Endeavor Zone, that's west of Wall Triana. The area north of Pine Grove, as it runs east and west and extends all the way to County Line Road. The road doesn't extend, but we looked at that line as it extended west. Those were areas basically in the Monrovia Middle Zone that could remain at Sparkman High School and not be zoned for the new high school. In the Sparkman Middle Zone, there were 2 main areas that we looked at that could be zoned to the new high school and not remain at Sparkman High School. And that's east of Jeff Road all the way up to Carter Gym, is over here, and primarily west of Wall Triana all the way up to Harvest Road. So those were the two main segments that we looked for potentials that, and when we do this, basically what would happen is they would break away from their feeder pattern. And that could have occurred after the 8th grade, where the middle school, the 8th grade, they go to a different high school, and that's from both scenarios. Or it could even happen after the 5th grade if these zone lines are actually adopted for not just high schools, but also middle school. Of the 4 main 9-12 options that we looked at, there were 4 at the end of the day. At the end of all these meetings, there were 4 main ones, and the committee members referenced these in the maps. And you notice there was a lot of letters there, so we mainly just have these as options 1, 2, and 3, and 4 for simplicity. But first, this is a Sparkman zone together. And you can see Sparkman is located kind of in the southern third. If you divided this area into thirds, it's on the line that would separate the southern third from the middle third. But it would be projected, based on the middle school enrollments, to have 2,400 students at a 26.9% black and 37.4% free reduced lunch. So that's kind of the target. Whenever we started going through scenarios of splitting into 2, we wanted to try to keep it as close to what it would be if they were combined. The scenario that was kind of the baseline that the Justice Department basically said was not an option is if we did separate based on middle school zone lines. If we did that, if we did just separate it on middle school zone lines, there would be 994 students at a 912 Sparkman High School, and that's at about 50% capacity. There would be 31.7% black and 55% free reduced lunch. The new high school would have a little over 1,400. 23% black and 21% free reduced lunch, and that is, and our goal there is what they want to combine together, and that is, so that was kind of what the Justice Department said. Hey, you got to do better than that. So, kind of one of the main options we looked at. This is an option. The green is for the new school, and the light blue will be for Sparkman High School. And for the new school, it would be the Legacy area south of Douglas Road, and all of the Endeavor area. That's west of Wall Triana. But what we would do is extend the northern part. This is into the Harvest Elementary Zone, up near Harvest Road, cutting just south of Harvest Road. When doing that, the difference, the enrollments are there from 1290 would stay at Sparkman with a 28.2% black and 42.7% free reduced lunch. The new high school would be an enrollment of about 1,100, 25.3% black and a 31.2% free reduced lunch. Now, while our desegregation order does say, hey, if you create a new zone, it needs to improve the percentage, the integration of the system. That's really hard to do when you have one whole system and you're making 2. It's almost mathematically impossible. But as a school system, and when we're looking at at-risk funds, one of the biggest indicator of at-risk is poverty and free reduced lunch. So as a district and as someone who wants a successful school system, as we move in the next decade or 2, and something that we've consistently said, or I've consistently said, is that matters. And that essentially matters more as far as who is at risk. And that is the numbers, those free reduced numbers. We want to keep as close to 37.4 as possible. Our desegregation order says we need the racial percentage we need to stay as close to that target area. That was the option 1. Option 2 is similar to option 1, but it brings in the southern third of Monrovia Elementary. It really brings in south of Lake Bottom Road. Into that changes the populations of the schools. Sparkman High School is now close to 1,150. The new high school close to 1,250. The percentage minorities of percentage black is 27.7. At Sparkman High School, 46.7% free reduced lunch. The percentage black at the new high school would be 26.2%, and the percentage of free reduced lunch would be 28.8%. So that was option 2, which was one of the letters there that was in the final kind of that the committee could have voted on. Option 3, which I think was option Or it was not H.
Option two is which math number letter-wise?
Was it I?
Well, in a sense, the only folks that have that are kind of us looking at it, I'll go back and
Okay,
sort
I'll
that
get
out.
it.
But these were four main ones that really, that we kind of came down to and discussed.
H.
H, okay, thanks.
What was the one?
H, option 3 is H. So option H is kind of the inverse of option 2. It's where it extends north of the Monrovia Elementary District. So this is east of Jeff Road, which is Monrovia Elementary, extending into what is Madison Crossroads Elementary Zone up to Carter's Gin Road. In the Legacy Elementary, the Legacy is between Jeff and Wall Triana. It extends up to Nick Davis. And in the Endeavor Zone, it goes as far north as Pine Grove Road, cutting through a neighborhood that goes, if Pine Grove Road continued to go straight, it doesn't, it cuts north. But if Pine Grove Road cuts straight, we cut through there. And with that, the enrollments were 1227 at Sparkman High School and 1173 at the new high school. You can see the racial percentage is pretty close here, 26.2% black at Sparkman High School, 27.6% black at the new high school. The free reduced lunch gap is getting alarmingly separated there. When you start having a 49% free reduced lunch to a 25% free reduced lunch for high schools, that becomes an issue to manage in there and kind of starts to raise a red flag. And you can see there's our goal. If we can get public schools to have that demographic, that's what we would look for. Option 4 is a little bit like option 3, a lot like option 3. But it was extended north, where it goes west of Pine Grove Road to encompass that neighborhood. It was also extended north of Nick Davis to bring in the Ridge. Now what happens with there is the enrollments shift a little bit, 1,100 or so and 1,200, almost 1,300 to the new high school. The percentage of black percentage at Sparkman is 27.8 to 26.1 at the new high school. And the free reduced lunch is now about 120% higher of a free reduced lunch rate at Sparkman High School. Up 53% free reduced lunch to a 23.9% free reduced lunch.
Is this I?
That is I. And that's what the, when the committee, at the end, they voted on, and we didn't have, because we had Sharon Rivers was part of the, one of the meetings of running that. On I, the committee met with no district personnel in there, and they, this was kind of our last meeting to kind of, hey, of 9, 12, which one you want the most? And it was kind of, hey, this is, if we can extend this north and this one north a little bit, we like I. And so we went and ran the free reduced lunch numbers after that. That's why we didn't have them on at the point when they ended that meeting. So with that being the committee's choice, and then with it came to, with the input that they provided and all the hard work into there, it was what direction to go to recommend. And I had 3 main issues with MAP I. One is a huge socioeconomic separation. That is the biggest obstacle to manage as far as success of students. That is the biggest obstacle to overcome. It also led to an undercapacity at Sparkman High School, a school that holds nearly 1,900, would have close to 1,100. And there are some geographical complications that I want to talk a little bit about too. The geographical complications basically come into play with the 2 areas I have circled here. We're going to focus in on the one on the left first. And see this neighborhood, the 2 red dots are where the new school are located. So zooming in here, the new school will be located where this little schoolhouse is. The person that actually lives the closest to the school is right here on Pine Grove Road. He lives north of it there, that person does. They actually are not zoned to the new school. It's literally within 500 to 600 feet of the school property. You've got an entire neighborhood where these folks aren't going, and you can see this is the area where we extended this north to bring in this. So we've got people really less than a mile within the school that do not go to.
So do you rezone them for Legacy then?
We wouldn't do any These are zoned for Endeavor.
Well, with that rationale, they don't go to Legacy now.
But they go to Endeavor, which is right here.
Correct.
So, yeah, some are close to Legacy, but the school they go to are still probably 2 miles away.
There's no rule if we're having to go where school empty out, the road that they empty out on. Does this particular subdivision have 2 empty roads?
Yeah, they empty north on McDavis and on to Waltrona and south onto Pine Grove. So since it's multiple, it really is where the line is drawn. The other area of concern is the northern area. This area, which is more of the higher and the free reduced lunch and the minorities, literally would drive by Spartan High School as they make their way to what would be the new high school. So those are kind of the, of the different things there, those are the 2 big geographical kind of concerns there.
But they would do that with your first map, with your option too. That the people in Harvest would drive by Spartan to get to the new high school.
And which one option?
Whichever the first option you had was
Option
Harvest, you went up to Harvest Road. Right to back up.
This one?
When you go up to Harvest Road, it's the same scenario.
Well, it stops south of here, so those that empty on the Harvest Road would stay at Spartan, but those on Waltrona up here, they wouldn't have to drive by it. They may be closer as the crow flies, but it would be south on Waltrona and hang a left on Pine Grove, so they wouldn't have to drive by it. Make sure I didn't skip one there. Okay. So then it became, as our team was getting ready to make a recommendation, is our 2 9-12 schools, is it viable? We're talking about the press box at Hazel Green and not having the funding to do that. That's going to produce major questions in athletics facilities, which Gary will talk about in a little bit here with when we start talking about the architecture update. But in the end, no matter what we recommended or came out of that committee meeting, the Justice Department and the Legal Defense Funds has a huge say in drawing the line with that. And maybe that was a miscommunication on my part. It wasn't that their job wasn't to draw it. It was to add input onto what will work. In the end, it's going to be hard, impossible to get something that everybody is unanimous that says, let's do this. In fact, one of the dissenting votes that you mentioned was everyone that, in that last thing, were they in the zone? The ones that didn't vote for that actually weren't in the zone on there. So with that. So but what would happen with 2 9-12s? There is not a scenario in which the Monrovia community will, if you define the Monrovia community as being Monrovia Middle School, there's not a scenario that will not be split up. So the Monrovia community will be separated. The Harvest community will also be separated. There will be a reduction in electives. We're now running mock schedules of 2 9-12s and a 9-10 and 11-12 based on what we have with our staffing needs there. We will not be able to offer the same program at both schools.
You will have to offer
The same.
You will have to offer the same to get approved.
So what happens if you have to offer we can't offer an elective at one school and not at another. So what happens is when we have a photography program that is able to be supported at one school, there will not be the units to have 2 photography teachers at 2 different schools. We will not have the units to have 2 medical academies. We will not have the units to have 2 journalism programs at 2 different schools. So there will be a loss in electives. Now it will occur collectively because you can't offer them at one school and not another. So with our mission and what we want to offer our schools, it is, and I'll go back to our mission statement here. It's going to be really hard to support high-quality public schools that maximize student achievement and expand opportunities for students when we don't have the local support and the local funding to do so. There are opportunities to increase that funding that could have happened with some of the folks that entered into the agreement with us, with the county commission, but we can't support 2 high-quality 9-12 schools. Now, we will make it happen. We can make it work. It would function. But the quality of that will go down. There will not be the robust electives in both things.
Did you look at the 2 9-12s using the same concept that you were proposing for 9, 10, 11, 12, where you have kids transported during a specific block to go back and forth, which means you can allow one school to host the engineering academy and the other school to attend, so there's no loss of opportunity? Did you look at that for the medical academy? Did you look at that at all? Or did you say that's not feasible for 2 9-12s, but it is feasible for 9, 10, and 11?
And that's something we don't do in any of our schools. We don't have
You're
school.
going to do it for 9, 10, 11, 12. So
That's right.
look at it here.
Because they would be the same school. You know, we don't have 100 kids from Buckhorn that go to Hazel Green to take classes every day and back and forth. And so, you know, when you start doing that is, you know, do you have any schools? I mean, where kids can go to different schools to take a class. So could kids from Hazel Green come over also to take that class? It would be a separate school, just like Madison County and Hazel Green are all separated now. So that was kind of the summary of that. If there's any other questions, we'll let Carrie go ahead and give an architecture update. That is the, you know, kind of what, and now we discussed that in the committee, we will be discussing that open on there. So you're right, it is hard for, as Larry said, it's hard to form an opinion on the 9, 10, 11, 12 when really the case specifically hasn't been made, and that's part of that conversation that has been made. All right, Carrie.
Yes, sir. Real quick, this is the site plan for new high school sits down Pettis Road. You notice the blue area or the light green area, that is actually some of the wetlands. So we'd had a question at the last board meeting. Our jurisdiction permit has left Decatur. It is in Nashville now. We'll get it within the next 30 days. So from there, after, as soon as we get it back here sometime this month, we'll do our 8M permit, we'll do our wetland credits, we'll move forward with it, and we'll be ready to bid it and probably have it in place or begin construction. Still looking for a June deadline.
So does this plan still include the auditorium that the superintendent put in?
Yes, sir.
So we have inadequate money is one of your reasons for athletics to do this, but there's $3 million to put in an auditorium in the design.
You ready to talk about the design?
Yeah, let me talk. So that's the site work. We're moving along with it, and we're in good shape there. The high school, this is a little bit of a different, tiny bit of a different twist from what you saw in December, January, only that we flipped a little bit the direction of the auditorium and also the gymnasium. And what we did is, by doing that, you know, the 2 shaded areas can be alternates. If we're over budget, that gives us opportunity to take those areas off the school and work from there. Just real quick, this right here is your education wing. This is your second floor of the education wing. And then everything else above it is your electives, your gym, your dining, and a few more classrooms on both sides that you can see. So what we come across, we have $43 million right now to spend on this high school. We've been working off a budget for the last 2 years of schools that bid last year, like some of your high school schools, other schools, $165 a square foot. 2 schools came in this fall, and that's the only way to really gauge what things are costing. Austin High School just bid at $190 a square foot, site work and building. School in Alabaster was $20 million over budget. $6 million budget came in at $80 million. Things have escalated since the economy has turned a little bit. So if we're looking at a $190 a square foot budget today, $43 million, we're looking at 3.5, roughly $3.5 million in soft costs. We've got engineering permits, fees, testing, source testing. $300,000 of it will go to that Alabama Building Commission for a construction permit, which we didn't used to have 2 years ago. That's something they started enacting. So $3.5 million there. Roughly, we used to do furniture at 4% the cost of construction. On this project, we're hoping to do it at 2% the cost of construction and take the other 2% from existing Sparkman High or by using some different furniture and the materials we have in place already. That's $800,000 at 2%. So that leaves us roughly $38,700,000. $38,700,000, $109 square foot. We're looking at 203,000 square feet. 203,000 square feet gives us a school same size as Sparkman High, but smaller than Hedge Green High and Buckhorn High School. 10,000 square feet smaller than one and 5,000 square feet smaller than Buckhorn. But one thing that Sparkman, Hedge Green, and Buckhorn all do have, they have some outbuildings. Their PE, their archery, their driver's ed, some of those spaces add about 20,000 square feet to every campus, and they use their outbuildings for classes. So what we're looking at here is the auditorium and the gymnasium may not have the funding to put those in place. The athletics that we had planned to do the bare basics on having our practice fields in place, which would have been sodded, sprinkled, irrigated, and some fencing, all it gives us is the opportunity just to seed it, grade it and seed it, and let it go at that point under this budget. It's not what we want to do, and it's not the desire, but it's the funding is driving this design. And looking at the design right now, we're stuck at right at 200,000 square feet, no athletic fields at all, and a good chance that those alternates may not be there when the bid comes in.
So as far as the outdoor facilities, just, this is the first time the board members have looked at this, but it's the first time it's been out in public. The building, it was 2 gyms. The second gym may not have the funding to do so. We had originally schemed for an auditorium. The funding may not be there for that. But as far as the outdoor facilities, we're talking no baseball stadium?
We're talking no fencing, no irrigation, seeding, but just seeding it. Seeding and straw and hybrid seeding, no sod put in place. And it'll be graded for fields, but it won't be quality fields that you really want to practice on every day. Because you'll need an irrigation system and you'll need certain things done. And at that point, it rely on the community of coaches to make that happen. But there won't be anything there for the athletics. And this design that you see here is roughly 235,000 square feet. So we're 35,000 square feet smaller, using $190 a square foot today than what we'd want to be. So this plan is based on funding and what we can do.
So if we have a 9-12 school, how would that function without, my concern is how would that function without a baseball field and a football field and softball field?
We just take PBA money, leverage it, and build one.
Even as you could say something. And the 190 came from 2 recent bids. When were they bid?
Austin High School bid about a month ago, about 4 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's, and it's right next door, and the low contractor, they had 4 bids on it. Low contractor's not local either. He was, don't quote me, I believe he was out of Birmingham, but he was not what I consider a North Alabama contractor. And so, yeah, I don't think we're gonna get any better of a bid. That was a good bid. And they actually have a second school coming out for bid, I believe, in 3 weeks. indicated.
They're 190, essentially the same scope. They didn't do any outdoor facilities.
No, they're keeping all their outdoor facilities on the existing campus. I believe it's Oval Stadium, maybe, even might be.
The city runs their outdoor.
Yeah.
That's the difference is when you're a city system, you have city municipal help with outdoor facilities.
So they were fine having no facilities on campus. This is just the parking, the drives, and the building. And it's basically a lot of our same design, things we do. It's streamlined, it's not real fancy. It's a good bid.
And up until learning that, we were using what number per
It's
square foot?
165.
That's been our budget all along.
Yeah, that's been kind of actually, when we first started it, when we looked at it even before we got our final funding, we were as low as 135 about 4.5 years ago. But we've been using 165, and that was a good number. I mean, we saw it with the schools that have been built locally in the state. And you look at Prosper, look at some of those, and everything was doing fine, and this, about the last 12 months, it's changed.
What drives that up?
Well, we know it's not gas and oil.
Well, I mean,
but-
I've always heard that was, that kind of lined up with that. You'd think with
You're
that
absolutely
low.
right. We just think, coming out, looking out of the recession still, we're not really sure. We don't see anything. What's driving a lot of it is, it's actually probably more labor costs by far than material costs. Material costs are pretty good, but you'll find, I believe they had 2 masons pre-qualified for that project. And the labor costs are horrendous. You can't get anybody to do any manual construction labor anymore. We see that everywhere we go. It took us, and not to hound on some subject, but even for us to find a plumber that was qualified to work in our department, we posted it twice, and then we put it on an extended post to try to have people apply. And there's not enough people out there. Really, they're just not there.
So what's the next step?
Well, in the 11-12 configuration proposal, we can work with this because we can still use the athletic facilities that we currently have. If we're not doing 11-12, I don't know how a 9-12 campus will work when they don't have athletic facilities and we can't provide them. I'm just wondering what plan could there, what would be which that was never in the works before, I don't think, as far as having stadiums and things, but what, you mentioned the community would support this, or could bring that up.
Well, that's an option that's been mentioned to me. If there was a concern with athletic facilities, and maybe something to do with it. One thing we've looked at is taxing, community taxing facilities. The timeline involved in building a project this large, you would also have time, they call for a special election for the commission to be willing to, we would also have time to do a specific taxing district, which we have the authority to do. But that, we'd have to go work with the community and see if we're willing to do that. That's an option that's been raised to me, I didn't raise it.
Do you think that taxing district would depend on the zone that we create here, or would it be the taxing district for the high school zone?
I think the zone has to be available for that taxing district discussion.
When that happens, is that a
Because when we
popular?
create a taxing district, I'm not sure that it doesn't need to look a whole lot like the zone. It has to. Now, eventually, that zone line could change and the taxing district doesn't. But, those answers aren't going to happen between now and midnight.
Cindy, do those happen, does that have to have a referendum or a popular vote if we do a taxing district? Those,
It
Karen,
does.
you know?
It has to have, no, it has to have a local bill, and then it has to have people to that district. But county's not a countywide, it's
A
not
local bill
a.
creates the district.
Yeah.
There's a lot of homework we did with Tom Francis, gosh, 4 years ago. I can send you, email that to you. I think I sent it to you
You
once a
did,
couple
yeah.
years ago.
Was that done based on the current zone lines, or did that include
No,
District 4 and 5, or did it include?
The first requirement is a legal description of what the taxing
What the district would be,
It
okay.
has zero to do with a board district, with a zone line.
Not even a voting district, it's just
No, it's
establishing a district.
Create on your
basically.
own what this taxing district will be and provide an adequate legal description. Now,
But it makes sense that it goes along with the high school.
it makes sense that it matches to something people would understand, like the zone line for whatever your school is. So, the taxing district could be map I.
Right.
So.
Would the
that's-
DOJ have any problem with that? Because, if we're talking about equity everywhere,
Creating
if.
Forcing a community to support itself?
I know,
That's-
but if I can understand that if you put it on temporarily to build whatever you need to build to.
The taxing
I'm just
district would stay there
asking, I
forever.
don't know.
The taxing district would then be there in perpetuity, but the tax that they levy could expire. And then we could turn around and Meridianville High School could create a taxing district. We could create one, I think we talked about this 2 or 3 years ago at the board. We have the authority to create multiple taxing districts inside our school boundary, our school system, for school taxing purposes. We don't have the authority to pass a tax. We have the authority to create a taxing district.
With the hope that it would obviously pass with a popular vote.
But the tax will pass.
When you say we have the authority to
We,
create.
the board.
You're talking about the board.
We,
not-
Madison County Schools, have the authority to create a taxing district.
You just can't levy a tax. That has
We
to be a
cannot,
vote.
just like right now, we have our own taxing district inside the county, but we can't tax it. This would be no different. And it's property tax only, it's not sales tax.
So if we create this 912 and that tax doesn't pass, or if we create that taxing district, we've just got to figure out how we're going to make things work.
Well, the problem you're gonna have is, they're not gonna look at alternates, they wanna know what the plan is, they want a complete plan for consideration.
That's equal with both
Well, you
things.
know all the criteria that.
Yeah. Do you see a scenario, I don't know, but is there another scenario other than, or I guess that taxing district would be the scenario to try to get?
There were other, I had a general statement made to me by someone, well, I can come up with a couple of million, I know we can get the community to do this. And that wouldn't involve taxes at all. But I'm not going to make that commitment.
Good, get that.
I'm not coming up with a couple of million. I don't
Some
have
booster
it.
club right there. No one give them those.
So, yes, I think there's community interest in doing the support, but we have to be honest with the community, and we have to be decisive on what we're going to do. I'm not going to my community right now and saying, you guys tax yourself for something we might think about doing. No, I'm not running for election, but I'm still not going to do that. I mean, I live with these people.
So it's kind of then build, but the alternative is to build it and go, okay, we built something that's not quite complete. We now need you to tax yourselves so we can finish this project. I feel like that's the alternative we're kind of putting our citizens
No,
in.
I understand, and this $190 is just really screwing things up. Make it change.
Hopefully we'll have another bid, I say, 3 weeks, and see how it falls out.
What Grissom come in at?
I believe it's right around 165.
Yeah.
Any more discussion on that topic?
I would want to point out that what we're describing with the athletic facilities at the new school is with outdoor athletic facilities. That's no different, as I understand it, as how Madison County High School was done. That's what we've been dealt, that's how we've done it before. And the community, in Madison County came together and built what I would call awesome athletic facilities. But unfortunately, with our funding situation, it's a challenge that we're faced with. And I'm not so sure in rural Alabama and county school systems that taxing districts may not be the answer for their survival going forward. So you bring up a good point about the taxing districts. Let the communities decide if they want to come together. It's not our choice, it's theirs. If they want to go over and above to support that, I think we should look at giving them that opportunity.
Well, I will certainly send to each of you what we did many years ago, several years ago. Gosh, I want to say Terry was still there.
He was.
And in our area, in my area specifically, we looked at, I think, 3 different scenarios. Do we need 3 mills? Do we need 6 mills? And then, because we do 3 mills immediately. We can do like 6 mills, and then if we go 10 mills, then there's varying scenarios of authorities, and whether it takes a legislative vote, or it's a local act, or whether we just put it on the ballot. I think the 3 mills we can just put on the ballot.
Yes,
It's
3, and I have all the
Yeah.
steps we can see in that again.
Yeah,
3 meals, and then you can, another vote,
Right. That's-
increase that millage rate, once you get past that.
So then you're stuck in a Mobile County scenario of you get one pass and don't get the other, and you're like, you have one shoe on.
Plus, we need to consider our
Well,
property
yeah.
taxes are up for renewal. Our property taxes are up for renewal in 2019. And so we would need that passed in either 17 or 18.
Which is
to make
definitely
it-
the Baldwin County scenario where they didn't
That's
even get
right.
all their old taxes back.
The
So,
school system cannot survive without that renewal.
I'm just,
Well, and you know, Baldwin County put something on with theirs and it failed.
yeah.
So we
They've
can't
had
take
to
that,
bring it
we
back
can't
and
take that
then-
chance.
Well, not district-wide, but again, a small taxing district.
And that's the difference, that's the point I was making, is unfortunately, there is a perception in rural school systems in the county that that's your little, it's not a city, but, or, that's
Right.
your little area, and this is mine, and just the idea of, you know, it being a more sellable situation if a person is going to be for a tax, and they know that is staying in what they perceive as my community.
Right, inside that entity.
Yes.
And that's the advantage, is that it's identifiable. And like I said, the zone line itself, I believe, the way it was worded, the way the law is worded, the zone line itself, once it's set, it's set. It doesn't change. That zone line is what it is until the earth explodes. So.
The taxing.
The taxing zone.
Yes.
Not the
Taxing
tax,
district.
but again, you
Correct.
can create multiple taxing zones.
But if you did that everywhere, I'm just playing the devil's advocate here. Like if you had a taxing zone in New Hope, and it was the same millage rate that you had in Monrovia, it in no way would generate the kind of funds that you would have in Monrovia.
True.
So what we risk doing is having further inequality in our system.
But
So,
it's-
that just concerns me.
I understand that, but Monrovia may be able to do 3 mills for what they need. New Hope and Gurley may have to do 6 or 7 mills to get what they need. But it's the community decides what they need and what they want to do. It's not the school system. Once that taxing district's created, we don't control it. That community determines its own fate. If the community decides not to support itself, okay.
But we would still, as a board, be responsible for giving a quality education to every child in Madison County, regardless of what the funding was, correct?
True. So the danger is the board can't become dependent on that community. That tax has to be for something specific. And then, the board really shouldn't control that taxing district money. It should almost be treated like a donation. Here's the community input to our finances for this purpose. And the board can't change that. The board can't take a Meridianville Hazel Green tax that was voted on and passed by that community to support completely revamping the athletics at Meridianville Middle, or adding an auditorium at Hazel Green High School. They can't take that money and say, okay, if we cut $1 million out of that, you can stick it at a pretty decent auditorium, we can use that $1 million over here. I don't think the board should ever put itself where they do that.
That's not the intention of the district.
Right, that's not it.
That's not the intention.
Well, it'd have to be segregated
It would have to.
for that particular district.
So,
It would
that was
save
an
tax
incredibly long discussion, Mr. Matzke. I believe the answer to your question is yes. I have been approached with a couple of options from my community on would they support. But I think what we owe my community is a definitive answer on what we're asking them to support.
Well, and I think that kind of gets back to how we finished that resolution, how if we're open to what the community wants to hear, this is kind of the first time we've talked about the 11-12 school opening and kind of what it would be, kind of what would also come with that is a potential taxing district to support what we're kind of starting. And so I think we need to, this is the beginning of that and to getting that feedback.
Well, I will tell you, this is definitely a community of engineers. And we need to not make generic statements, we need to have specifics. If we're going to make the statement that one option offers all electives, and we need to show how, and the other option kills all electives, we need to show how and why. And I think we need to be absolutely specific so there's no accusations that we're playing a show.
Well, there's no shell game. When we build 2 9/12 schedules, we can, we've gone through some preliminary mock schedulings of that, and we can get something very specific and
On
can
both
disseminate
sides.
that to the public.
Specifics on the 9, 10, 11, 12 as well.
Yes, yeah.
Because
We've
we
got
haven't
both
offered any of those
scenarios.
specifics either.
That's right.
Speaking of specifics, what is your next step relative to the zone lines? And what is
Well, we'll get our first set of feedback from the open forum where we have a few people that signed up. They'll be able to, I don't know how much time they've been able to take in, haven't really had a chance to present the 11, 12, or kind of what the committees, what they came up with until now. So this is the first time this has kind of been out there publicly, and since we're changing course from where we're heading on from back in July, I think we need to get community input into that, and I think it will come. And I think we need to listen to that, and then we can be ready to move forward in a way that
Would it be appropriate if we took a 5-minute recess?
that's what Angie's fixing to announce before we get into our special session.
And I do want to apologize to those of you who have signed up to speak that we haven't gotten to yet, but we're ready to move into the open meeting special session, but we'd like to pause and use the facilities, that sort of thing, in order to be able to listen intently and pay attention. So we'll take a 5-minute, everybody can get in and out 5 minutes, I assume. Thank you.
Ready for you.
Thank you.
I got another
Mr. Anderson in the hall? You would have to be talking to Mr. Anderson. All right. Yeah, if everyone have a seat, we're going to go ahead and start. Now transfer into the open meeting / special session for March 10th of the Madison County School Board.
I recommend approval of the agenda dated March 10, 2016.
motion.
Second.
A motion and a second, Square. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Anderson, I apologize, I didn't hear. Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. And now we move to open meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move to our open meeting. Again, we have 4 speakers who have signed up to signed up to speak. I'll read one time and have that cover it unless somebody wants to ask a question or have it read again. For the open session, all comments will be limited to 3 minutes. We ask that you consolidate your comments as much as possible and pass up your opportunity to speak if your comment has already been made. Your name will be called in order in which you signed in. And thank you for coming this evening. Our first speaker is Dennis Bartolotta.
Thank you. Most people don't do such a good job with my last name, so I appreciate that. I'm Dennis Bartolotta. I'm one of the original teachers at Sparkman 9th grade school. Started there when the school started. And I've heard a lot tonight about quality education, and I mean, we're all here for quality education, but I've heard virtually nothing that talks about who makes the quality education happen. It doesn't happen here, it happens in the classroom. Where's the teacher equation in any of these discussions? I haven't heard them, and I find that very, very disappointing. I've heard so many of you talk about how the teachers are so important and how much you appreciate the teachers. But you leave us out of the equation virtually, totally. At least that's my perspective from what I see. Maybe behind closed doors it's very different, but I just don't see it. I just see a lot of lip service being given to teachers. If you think there's confusion in the community, I can guarantee you, you can multiply that by about 10 times in terms of the confusion among your teachers. There's just been a total void of good information. I'm not sure why that is. We go with the 9 to 12 school, and this 9th grade academy concept virtually goes away. Everyone says Sparkman 9th grade school has been such a great success, academically and socially. Why are you so anxious to get rid of it? I kind of don't get it. Simply from my perspective, I think you're going to create a have and have not situation if you go with 2 full high schools. My other comments are probably, you've heard lots of other comments. I want to try not to duplicate them. You guys have a tough balancing act. I'm glad I'm on this side, not on your side. But it is the teachers in the classroom that you're going to ask to do whatever you decide. Don't you think it might be a good idea to get some of their input? I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Savannah Bullard.
Forgive me. First, I say good evening. My name is Savannah Bullard, and I'm a senior at Sparkman High School. To begin, I'd like to thank Mr. Massey and the board for recognizing me to speak. And I've been advocating for the Stand for Sparkman initiative for a little over a year now, and I can say it kind of changed my life. And I've learned the ins and outs of politics and what it takes to campaign and have a voice, but I've become so invested in Sparkman High School that there's no way I'm going to give up on it. And everyone here probably knows that I'm a strong opposer of the 9 through 12 school. I still firmly stand behind that. I believe you can't have one fully furnished school with half its population on free and reduced lunch and then have a brand new school with no baseball field or quality athletic venues. That's not the compromise that we should be making. And I've learned that politics is all about compromise and give and take. So I do still believe in an extension to the existing SHS campus. I think that's the best option for our system. But Mr. Massey's proposal of an 11-12 campus, it's a compromise I can live with. I believe he's making the best decision he can for our community. And having a split campus does bring up roadblocks, but we've figured that there are solutions to those problems. Because medical academy students travel 25 minutes to Huntsville Hospital to intern just during one block. And career tech students come all the way out here, which is about a 30-minute drive for half their day. So, I mean, these are things that we could do. And a 7-minute drive down the road is it's a price that I can pay to keep my school together. And opposers can get really caught up on like picky details and things like that. And some people are only in this discussion because they're afraid of their property values moving an inch. And I don't think they belong, because this is really about the students. And I think we need to bring that back here. And by creating two completely separate high schools, the number of program cuts will be dangerously high. You might lose a lot of programs that have really benefited students. I mean, you have state qualifying bowling teams, and I'm on the journalism staff, and it's completely paved my way to a very successful career already, and I haven't even graduated yet. So I'm always going to stand for Sparkman, but right now I'm standing by Mr. Massey and his plan to keep my school unified and strong. I've heard a lot of name calling. There's been a lot of arguing, and he said, she said, but the biggest thing that has stood out is that we should strive to make two schools equally great. That's an argument that we've had. But that can't work. Before we start thinking about building up another school, it's time that we appreciate and focus on the one we already have. Because there are students in classrooms cutting themselves on desks because the metal is broken off. And we have to be able to fix that. Last year we had sports teams finding funding to buy toilet paper for their field houses during games. And that's something that we shouldn't have to deal with. And so instead of making a new school bigger and prettier, I think that we should be thinking about the issues that really matter, and that's what's going to directly affect our kids. And I have younger siblings in Madison County schools. I will for another decade, so this is not my last time at a board meeting. So that's all I had to say. I just hope that y'all take that into consideration. Thank you.
Ms. Erin Stender.
Hi. Can you hear me? Cool. Okay. So hi, I'm sure you guys know who I am, kind of a familiar face around here, but I'm Erin Stender. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a senior at Sparkman High School, and I've been to a decent amount of these board meetings, and I've been following this for a long time. This has been happening for a long time, you guys. And so last meeting, you guys discussed hearing from the community. So here I am. I went to Madison Crossroads, and then I went to Sparkman Middle, and now I'm at Sparkman High. So, community. Today, I'm going to discuss the proposed 9, 10, 11, 12 plan by Mr. Massey. It's not exactly, as Savannah kind of said, what we want, because we still believe that putting that money back into our current schools is the best solution, but it is a great compromise. It's a way to retain those teaching units and adequate funding and ensure that our programs that Sparkman currently offers can stay intact. Sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. There will be logistics issues, but I'm confident they can be solved, such as like the bus rides to that 7-minute bus ride and things like that. Programs that will be split over 9, 10, 11, 12. But again, those are like minor things in face of separating an entire community. Sorry, I really did bullet point this. I also wish to address the belief that both schools could be great if another 9 through 12 school is constructed. I'm extremely concerned that it has become acceptable that these two schools will be underfunded. Not only that, but it has been proven time and time again that large schools offer further opportunities. And Sparkman, again, is not overcrowded. My point is that a 9 through 12 school will lead to underfunding and loss of awarding extracurriculars. And 11-12 at least offers for the community and resources to remain. I've talked to countless students about this week, and we all implore that you find any way to keep our community together and keep our programs alive, because that really is the lifeblood of Sparkman, are our programs. So that's really all I had to say. Thank you.
Carrie Dyer.
Hi. I have 8 children. 5 have graduated from Sparkman, 2 left still in the system. So yeah, I'm kind of at the end of this, but I feel passionate about my community and about my kids and other people's kids. All along, I've felt like this was a lot like a family trying to decide whether to replace and keep fixing up their old car or finally spring for a new car. You know, you just keep fixing it, and it goes another year and another year and another year, but you know someday you're going to have to pay the piper. And the problem is just like my family not having enough money to just spring for a new car, we haven't ever had the money to spring for a new high school. The timing of this isn't perfect. I've been here 10 years waiting for this to happen, and you know, my kid probably still won't go to a new high school, but that's okay. You have to do it when you have the chance, and that's what I see right here, is that we have the chance. Do I think that it will be perfect? My kids have been in all these programs at Sparkman. My daughter did medical academy. My son was a national championship cheerleader. I've been 4 years drama booster club president. She's go see 7 Brides for 7 Brothers this weekend. So we've been involved in a lot of these good programs, and I don't want to see anybody deprived of any opportunities, but I also recognize that at some point you just have to make those hard decisions and get on with it. The reason that Sparkman is not as overcrowded as it once was is because people are leaving. Good people that I worked with all through elementary and middle school, you know, saying, hey, you know, you got to get your kid out now. You can't get them into a private school if you wait, so you got to start now. I'm amazed at the number of people who have left. And I don't want to say if you build it, they will come, but it is true. If we had enough room for everybody, that would happen. To my way of seeing it, there are going to be some sacrifices, but it can be done. Now, I'm not positive here. I am pretty sure I remember hearing when Bob Jones and James Clemens split, that Bob Jones kept the Culinary Academy and James Clemens got something else, and they share. I couldn't state my life on that one, but I'm pretty sure that happened. I know that Monrovia Middle doesn't have its own football field, so we share with Sparkman Middle. They are not the same school, but we can still share. It can be done. It's okay. We know where each other live. You know, we can drive that 7-minute drive, even if we don't have the same name for our school. I also know that schools recover. My son's Eagle project was to put together the new library at Legacy. I've told you guys this before. It was sad. You know, there wasn't even one book on each shelf by the time we split the 2 libraries and we put them all out. I could show you pictures. It was really, really sad. But now you can't even contribute a book to Legacy hardly anymore and Monrovia, because the shelves are completely full. We will recover. Thank you.
All right, for administrative actions, item A, I recommend approval of the agreement between Madison County Schools and Admitum for a virtual school digital curriculum.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
I recommend approval of the loan request for Hazel Green High School for the football press box renovation.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes.
I recommend approval for the following contracts for services.
Motion and second, any discussion?
I had a question about one of those, if we can get to it here. for personnel, right?
It's for personnel. Here you go.
Okay, that'll help. Okay. Like number 7?
Yeah. That's the Sparkman Middle maintenance of website, Mark.
Yes, she's currently doing a semester-long internship. That was the amount of her current.
That she what now, Mark?
She's currently doing an internship, administrative internship, I believe. Am I correct with that? Am I not? I stand corrected.
Is this an,
Karen Jensen, is that, that's yours?
It's Title I.
It's
yes.
Title I, that,
She's
as
doing
it's
a
shown on the.
website for parents.
for Title I?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Not just for that particular school?
Well, it's a school-wide school, so she can do it for the entire school.
It's one of their projects under
Yes.
the Title I Sparkman
It's
Middle.
under their Title I budget?
Yes, it's under parent involvement, it is.
Okay.
I'm glad we can be able to do this.
And I noticed that number 8, I know she's employed regularly as a special ed teacher, and so that is just something over and above what she's doing, correct?
Ms. Stump, do you
That's
have that in
homebound.
front of you? It's Melissa Mann.
Yes, it is. It's for homebound, for a special ed student who is on homebound for contracting.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Recommend approval for the probationary contract for David Manning.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes.
Recommend approval of the following personnel items as submitted.
Motion and second, any discussion?
I got a question about page 4, number 2. What exactly is that position?
Page 4, number 2.
Yes.
Those are the local school aides, those are the people that help, that the school pays for to assist with their clerical duties.
Okay, so like it's clerical.
Hey, clerical, yes.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We had executive session.
I have certification to, for executive session pending litigation that I need to ask them.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a motion to move into executive session. Motion and a cumulative second over here. At this point, we'll move into executive session. I have the motion to adjourn if anybody would like to say.
And they both had sheets, too.
The Hills can't take that. They don't give us real stuff.